My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California.
Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. Ontario Police is gang stalking 8 GEN 638. It's already going to federal prison. That's the entity flying over the fake sun that's remaining here after 5 p.m. That's the demon possession of Mike Lorenz and everybody gang stalking. This is also why, again, Corey Watson's going to federal prison. The gang stalkers that engage in kidnapping under the fake sun that at no point is over the Ontario Open Family Community Library, gang stalking with the people of the state, and then using what is helicopter as a means of gang stalking to threaten while that demon knows that they're being documented. They all know that I'm documenting as I open the door and the fake sun is over the top of my head. Okay, because this is the fake sun right here, and you know that it remains here after 6 p.m. and the Ontario Police Department that are gang stalking while the fake sun is over this same exact building at 8 o'clock in the morning at 7:26 in the morning. That's the disbanding of the Ontario Police, who are gang stalking, which the federal government is a part of. This is again speaking to what is the gang stalking by the Los Angeles Police Department in Los Angeles, where you're looking at what is the impossible coexistence of a light source. You're looking at the covering up of this light source, which is demonic, not the natural weather, while demons who are engaging in surveillance as a police department, wasting millions of dollars, which is why Paul Leon is being removed. You have demons that are engaging in the criminal effort, blowing their horns, pacing on the railroad, on the roads and the highways, monitoring as a citywide effort, while the fake sun is right here, which is exactly what you saw when I opened the door. The simultaneity of demons who are already stalking in a helicopter, then flying over in relevant position, is speaking to the coexisting pattern of conduct amongst the entity and the people of the state. That is the entity acting directly. These are all demons, however. This is the entity that uses planes and helicopters that's speaking to the mentally ill. Okay, the demon-possessed are indeed mentally ill psychopaths who use millions of dollars to engage in illegitimate criminal conduct such as stalking in helicopters. The Ontario Police has nothing else to do, and that's why they are also being disbanded, aside from the repeated acts of kidnapping. You are aware that the entity has the fake sun here at 12:53 p.m. The San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department gang stalking under the fake sun that was right here, which is exactly where it is, where the Ontario Police are gang stalking in a helicopter. That's why they were readily capable of flying right over in relevant position, stalking with a demon that's in the parking lot, and doing so while I open the door. And the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department went to unit number 48 48 who are going to federal prison for that documented federal offense committed on behalf of the state of California. The Ontario Police Department's willingness to engage in gang stalking on video is speaking to their severe mental illness and worthiness of what is federal prison and mental asylums. They are not a distraction from prosecuting the people. They are evidence against the people of the state who are engaged in what is a pattern of conduct, which is speaking to the malice of an entity that is in service of Satan, engaging in the satanic targeting system of federal group stalking monitoring while simultaneously engaging in what is psychological warfare. All right, and that is speaking to also why federal prison and mental asylums is the inevitable and mandated punishment with regard to gang stalking by residents, which everyone in units 33 through 64 are, as surely as you see this fake sun and surely as you saw a corrupt police department that is still, after engaging in multiple kidnappings, are still gang stalking me and still interested in spending millions of dollars in doing so. It's expensive to maintain helicopters for gang stalking one person 24 hours a day, keeping those helicopters gassed up. They're doing so, which Paul Leon is very much aware of. He is entirely corrupt, and he is also a demon-possessed and mentally ill terrorist leader and not a legitimate mayor, and that is requiring also removal. This is what is wrong with Karen Base, and this is what LAPD were doing as well. And the evidence is showing that based on the supernatural character of this environment where the sun would never be over my head in this manner, like it is, by the way, this time of year, while I'm documenting the pattern of conduct by a corrupt police department in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, where Alvarado Gardens is engaging on what the criminal conduct is here, federal group stalking monitoring. All right, it's 12:17 p.m. That is, again, Alan D. WAPNER. As you hear amplified planes, where there's no Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 where you're taking off. The wealth of the documentation speaking to gang stalking by planes, as I have been documenting since 2018, you are understanding mental illness. And that is speaking to a population that sits in a parking lot, keeping a woman under surveillance, stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, and they're doing so in concert with the state. That's concentrating planes and helicopters. It's not just the removal and the diagnosis for the mental illness and the criminal conduct of the city of Ontario, but it's speaking to what is the criminal conduct of a demon-possessed population who are engaged in what is using 24 hours a day as a population to engage in surveillance. Surveillance is recognized in the supernatural environment, okay, where the fake sun is present, and this is no sunlight that's going to occur inside of the defendant Tracy Banks' apartment while the sun is remaining over me in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, where I am both at work at Building 1810 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles, California, from 8 to 5 p.m., where I'm documenting the fake sun and gang stalking by planes and helicopters, just like the Ontario International Airport and the City of Ontario Police Department, gang stalking with the population that it relies on. That population is going to prison. As surely as you see the gang stalkers of the Ontario International Airport pacing over a fake sun that is here at 7:26 in the morning, that is still here at what is 6:18 in the afternoon, that is here over the same tree 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Those are demons that are flying planes and helicopters, and their mental illness is put at the forefront of their prosecution while the people of the state, the population itself, is simultaneously being prosecuted. It is a comprehensive and corrupt act of the municipality that the state is engaging in. And remember that the entity has the fake sun over me at 12:08 p.m. as I walk out of the courtyard by Marriott on Dean Martin Drive in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's the prosecution of a demon that's gang stalking in a helicopter with the demon that's gang stalking in the vehicle in the parking lot, and the demons that are gang stalking with commercial planes. Everybody in units 33 through 64 who are living under the fake sun, the identification of criminal surveillance and psychological torture, they're also engaged in what is the spiritual attack. The entity is not capable of accomplishing this satanic means of trying to murder and kidnap someone by criminal defamation, and they're all going to prison and federal mental asylums because of their engagement and because of their continuing engagement in it. For the Ontario International Airport to fly over during the course of this video, that's documentation of impunity and malice, and it is unfortunate for their co-defendants. All right. It is also 12:19 p.m. where the entity keeps this fake sun, as you are also aware, in this same manner over me in Los Angeles, like I documented. It's the prosecution of the state of California, in other words. This is P.O.C. Tracy Banks exited out of the apartment. She is still gang stalking. She walks out of the apartment that's filled with engineer light. She walks out of the apartment still engaged in federal stalking. She walks out of the apartment while she is aware of everything that's being documented about her criminal engagement in the P.O.C. This is the environment where the Ontario Police Department is using helicopters, stalking and surveillance directly over the apartment complex, and that's why the ability to immediately fly over in relevant position while the fake sun sits here all day long, while I'm documenting a sex offender keeping a woman under surveillance in a private space. That's speaking to the sexual violence that AVANATH is going to be prosecuted for, criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, psychological torture by that private property management company, which is relevant to a criminal and a civil prosecution as well. I want to be clear, the entity is doing so with regard to not only the fake sun that you see outside, but also and over me outside and remaining over me outside, which is the pattern of conduct. This has nothing to do with sunlight. Okay, this is identifying what are demons flying helicopters, demons flying commercial planes, and the Ontario International Airport, a wealth of documentation which you can readily access on the P.O.C. website with regard to their hovering over me throughout the city of Ontario, gang stalking me by planes, even in Fontana, California, where the entity is engaging in this psychotic iteration of stalking, and their obsession is based on their demon possession. The entity is also engaging in what you need to be aware of, psychological warfare, and this is speaking to, again, the gang stalking government. This is the entity, the government that is engaging in what is psychological warfare, and then also gang stalking you in the physical. And this is supposed to result in what is, if not suicide, any of the entity taking your life, and then the entity controlling that narrative while they have been engaged in what is the calculated system of stalking you in ways that the ordinary target individual both cannot prove, and that which is psychologically harmful. The entity is also doing so while I am one that they are not capable as demons, inferior, not only intellectually, but they're inferior spiritually. And this is why the demonic system is not working against me, and I'm prosecuting. And while the entity that is demon possessed and is openly showing their corruption, that's how obsessed they are. That the police department will show you that they're obsessively stalking me. That the people of the state are still stalking a woman that they don't know in a parking lot. The ways in which gang stalking is executed, you're already aware of. They're in a parking lot under the fake sun, not in the natural environment where engineered light, not sunlight, appears inside of the apartment, where I'm documenting gang stalking in the same manner, also in an entirely different region. Mental illness is at the forefront of the prosecution of the gang stalking entity that's obsessed with me and obsessed with my genitalia, and is also obsessed with the evidence that I am publishing and creating on my device. That's what's relevant with regard to the demons of the Ontario Police stalking in the path over the apartment building, the demon that is stalking in the parking lot, the demons that are then pacing in traffic. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because the demon possessed are pathetic, but they're pacing in traffic on Vine Avenue, sounding their horns and whatnot, while again a fake sun, not the weather, is a means of what is filling this apartment with engineered light, as a glowing means of filling with engineered light. That was a stalker. License 8GEN 638 engages in the same thing. It's the same vehicle that may have been merely a third party. The population comes onto the grounds. That's what RGS is doing. All they're doing is digging in the earth while they're gang stalking. They're the same population gang stalking with the same corrupt police department, with the same corrupt airport, pointing to the demon, the terrorist leader that's going to be removed from office, including Alan D. Wapner, who's gang stalking with Omnitrans, gang stalking with the Ontario International Airport. The totality of circumstances speaking to unprecedented criminal conduct of a corrupt nature while I'm documenting, and the entity engages in more of exposure. It's not helping the people of the state. It's not distracting from the prosecution of the people of the state. It's ongoing confirmation that I don't even need, while I show you a demon who's monitoring me while I'm inside of an apartment, and the police fly over in helicopter and the state flies over in plane. This is speaking to that POC, and you already know that the fake sun is here 7:26 in the morning, where it has nothing to do with the engineered light that's here on a cloudy day, and regardless of whether the fake sun is rising, and it's still here after 6 p.m. aiming that which is not even sunlight. All right, this is the entity that is stalking in a manner that defies nature, and that mental illness is speaking to the disqualification from being engaged in law enforcement. You're also going to be prosecuted on it based on your criminal acts, where the entity that is gang stalking engages in what is kidnapping and exercising authority under the law that they don't actually have. They exercise that authority because no one is supposed to know about the criminal system of federal group stalking and monitoring. And because you have committed that while engaging in what is the extreme act of kidnapping, the Ontario Police Department, as they're demonstrating, still gang stalking, using millions of dollars in doing so, this is what they're devoting helicopter use to. They are going to be disbanded. And this is, again, what the federal government that has unclean hands, that is engaged in this pattern of conduct and facilitating it, and some claim of ignorance is insufficient, because this is why American citizens in this country are being killed, and there is no excuse for being corrupt at any level, at any level of government. The entity is doing so while I am documenting the POC, okay? And this is the fake sun that remains here. All right, covering it up immediately as I open up the door while the demon flies over in helicopter, and then another demon is hovering. There's no Terminal 2 or Terminal 4 where they're flying west over Woodside Senior Apartments, and it's not a coincidence while I'm capturing video, and it's not a coincidence while the fake sun is over me. It is a very highly unintelligent and not very well thought out pattern of conduct by the gang stalker that is the city of Ontario. This is POC. It is currently 12:25 p.m. This is pointing to the threat that government actors who are documented in the folder entitled the P.O.C. Outside of my prosecution of the U.S. government's pattern of conduct of federal group stalking and monitoring that's underway in California, I have documented third-party and state actors, and those who are documented are mandated to remain out of my presence. They are still threatening my life. The entity is still engaged in psychological warfare. The entity is still engaged in, as you're seeing, an ongoing unlawful and defeated effort because of the exposure, regardless of suppression of evidence. The entity is subject to what is a prosecution, and that which I remain subject to, I'm also going to prosecute the government for. Okay, the entity is engaging in this, and then you have those that are under the delusion that they're going to be in my presence, and you are a gang stalking demon, a psychopath. And because you are holding unlawfully to property that you stole from at the outset, you will be prosecuted, and you represent a threat while you are still targeting with the same state. Okay. That's the entity that is gang stalking with engineer light, not sunlight. And that is speaking to what's happening in Los Angeles, the P.O.C. All right, it is currently 12:26 p.m. That's the Ontario Police Department. Mike Lorenz is being removed from law enforcement altogether. And the Ontario Police Department and everybody working for that, employed with that corrupt agency, is being removed from law enforcement permanently. It's not just going to be disbanding. It's not just federal prison for those that are gang stalking in helicopters and kidnapping like I've documented. It is removal from law enforcement as domestic terrorists. This is P.O.C. It's 12:26 p.m. All right, the video that you just listened to is the pattern of conduct, precisely. It is the exact same formula of demons that are engaging in what is concerted acts of surveillance, and it is recognized in an environment that defies nature. It is a supernatural environment, and it is, as I've documented, where the sun rises and sun sets at one apartment. That's what Woodside Senior Apartments represents. That's what it is engaging in. And engagement is the correct phrasing because the specific environment is an act that's committed. It's not a natural occurrence. So the entity engaging in what is presence in the specific environment, which follows me where I go, that's how I have the fake sun over me at the Palmdale Road Holiday Inn in Victorville. That's how I have the fake sun, and not just over me, it remains there like the documentation shows. That's how I have the fake sun remaining over me, which is at the Key Point Road Holiday Inn in Hesperia, California, where it's documented rising and setting, and that which is rising in alignment to the entrance doors of the Holiday Inn on Key Point in Hesperia, California at around 7:20 in the morning in the desert is not in alignment with, or being over anywhere, is not seen over in perfect alignment with Tracy Banks' apartment, unit number 51 at Woodside, facing south at 7:26 in the morning, for example, before daylight savings time. None of this is speaking to what is some perfect alignment with your ability to see. In other words, the sun everywhere, wherever all of us are at, because you're talking about what is removing the existence of an actual target individual and denying the reality of the environment that defies nature. The entity is engaging in what is highly illogical. It's actually, it's asinine. It's obvious with regard to that character of the environment, which points directly to what is seen as stalking, understood as stalking. And you also can understand the Ontario Police Department are fully shown as stalkers, even outside of the gang stalking pattern of conduct. The evidence of them following me around in the city of Ontario with helicopters, and it is that specific because not everyone else can claim the places that I'm at the same time amongst the population. So I am stating I'm going from place to place in the city of Ontario, and I'm being harassed by helicopter that are flying over my head and flying in circles around me, and harassing with amplified audible activity of that helicopter. And that is a basis for harassment, a suit for harassment. Stalking is harassment, based on existing traditional stalking laws. And there is no law that or policy whereby stalking cannot be prosecuted because it's happening in a helicopter. It's the corrupt entity that first thought of this notion of terrorizing someone, and doing so in such an incredible manner that is both very terrorizing to the ordinary target individual who is indeed being targeted, which the totality of circumstances is what's revealing that, and removing the illusion of normalcy of everything and everyone and the environment, but also removing the illusion of some sort of mental illness on the part of that targeted individual. You're looking at a mentally ill demon that's flying a helicopter. And that helicopter is linked to a police department, and that police department is demon infected. All right, and it's going to be disbanded because they've engaged in multiple kidnappings, and they are to date still obsessed in stalking. Still, this is why they are being removed from law enforcement. They are literally a waste, a hemorrhage of money wasted on their obsession with a woman who has I've embarrassed them. Not only prosecuted them, I have embarrassed them. And they are still obsessing over my genitalia. They're obsessing over my thoughts. They're obsessing what it is that I'm doing the moment that I wake up. They're obsessing with the people of the state who are coming onto the grounds and are remaining on the grounds by residence and by placement of employment to keep me under surveillance, to gang stalk me. And again, the purpose, the cause of the obsession of those who are gang stalking. You are stalking someone that you're obsessed with, and a population is in fact stalking when they're gang stalking. And you're understanding and recognizing the ability to see what is gang stalking and that environment that defies nature. The target individual is targeted, and the environment proves that. And everyone in that environment is also a bunch of psychopaths who don't want to be seen or have no reason to be obsessed. The necessity of gang stalking through those whom you don't even know or have a relationship to. And it's also not even relevant in order to prosecute the system of gang stalking. And their obsession is the mutual condition that they all share. They're all demon possessed, and they're also mentally ill. Okay, so the entity that is gang stalking in the parking lot, that's what I'm narrating in the video. I'm going to read the timestamps because this is speaking to the P.O.C. of the entity that engages in what is gang stalking in a manner where, because the Ontario police is already engaged in, and they're repeatedly and ceaselessly engaged in surveillance using their helicopters. They're using also their police vehicles. They are being paid salaries to engage in domestic terrorism and psychological torture. That's not the purpose of police departments. And they represent a humongous waste of resources, a criminal misuse of resources, and deliberately continuing in that while they know and are witnessing their public demise, their public exposure, which also the federal government is engaged in that corruption. Okay, this is the pattern of conduct by the U.S. government, and what the city of Ontario is engaging in. The city of Ontario is continuously engaging in it, while it is the federal government that is supposed to be in the position of being the supreme level of government that's supposed to be prosecuting public corruption and not a part of it. And this is what, again, unfortunately, corrupt demons like Jason Isaac Phillips, that's what they represent. All right. And they are representing what is the unclean hands of the government. They are representing what is the full ability to be exposed to the same level of treatment under the law. You're certainly not above the law, but it's speaking to the vulnerability of any human being that is a part of any federal agency or police department, sheriff's department. I've documented every angle of that pattern of conduct, by the way, with regard to that corrupt system, which is speaking to demon possession, which is speaking to what are people who are exhibiting mental illness while they're stalking people that they don't know, stalking people that they're related to, stalking people in ways in which they presume that person that they're stalking is not going to be able to prove it, and stalking someone when exhibiting mental illness on that stalker's part, and acting with regard to a corrupt system, seeking to criminally defame the person that they're stalking. That is psychopathic. Okay. And this is what a police department is committed to. And while I'm prosecuting the state that's gang stalking in helicopter, it is the prosecution of what is a gang stalking mayor. You're looking directly at Paul Leon, who is not an actual pastor. This is a demon possessed gang stalker. This is speaking to what is both a criminal who is not an actual pastor. All right. If you're walking with Christ, if you're serving him, if you are called to be a pastor, to be a teacher, you're not engaged in a lifestyle of criminal conduct. And this is a false teacher. Not only that, and I don't have to know him to read the fruits. Not only that, he is a gang stalking mayor, and the police department and the Ontario International Airport are representing the same city of Ontario that you also seen. Literally, they're gang stalking while they empty the garbage. They are gang stalking with regard to every criminal misuse of the municipality, which is pointing, again, directly at Paul Leon. The entity that is gang stalking is creating what is a body of evidence against its co-defendant, and that is the provenance of the malice, where you're understanding the entity that's targeting you as a group. Well, that group is telling on its co-defendants, and the co-defendants remain at Woodside Senior Apartments inside of all of the units around in buildings, in the two buildings that encompass units 33 through 64, and they're all going to prison and mental asylums. And their psychotic engagement and pacing around and stalking with noise and stalking under the fake sun, because that's what you're doing when you live in an apartment complex and the fake sun is remaining over your home. Your home is a crime scene. In other words, the legitimate federal government knows exactly who you are and what you're doing and what you thought to do maliciously to someone, and also capable of diagnosing your mental illness that is no longer closeted. While psychopaths fly over your apartment home, pointing directly to you in helicopter, while psychopaths fly directly over your home, pointing directly to you in commercial airline planes, where there is no airport. All right, Terminal 2 and Terminal 4, far too removed from Woodside Senior Apartments at 408 West G Street, 2500 and 2900 Airport Road, I believe, or Airport Road, I believe that's the address. I'll go ahead and confirm that right now, because when you're taking off, like I've stated this before, very obvious. And not only that, the entity is going to produce what it's doing with planes. There is footage where they literally provide, this is not a mystery at all. Everything that you're doing, just like in a grocery store, just like in the mall, just like even on the freeways, they've got cameras. They have ways where they are literally documenting what they're doing as they do it on the job, both for the benefit and the quote unquote protection of the public, but also for the protection of those that are engaging in the execution of that job. It's the same with the demons who are flying commercial planes, and they're literally going to produce the evidence about their criminal acts. As they are going to be, if you're aware of how you prosecute, it's called a production. You're going to produce it yourself. You're going to admit it. The entity is engaging in what is very foolish conduct, and even outside of production of evidence, meaning the very demons who are stalking in planes and helicopters, which is the criminal misuse of the resources of the municipality, which is a very readily capable means of producing the details about those mentally ill gang stalkers who are going to mental asylums and prisons. It's not mysterious. It's not vague and some sort of information that you can never, that's not what's happening with gang stalking, and it's not what's happening with the prosecution of the gang stalkers at the Ontario International Airport and the police department. What you're not going to be distracted by is the entity is engaging in gang stalking, and you're looking at what is the helicopter and the planes, which are audible activity, relevant positioning. Fake sun remains here. Fake sun is also over me, same time of year, same time in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens. In addition to, and that's just where I was living and working, I traveled. It's during daylight savings time. I traveled as I left Alvarado Gardens after the entity interfered with my liberty rights to be free from this very system. Ontario Police Departments, the City of Ontario's obsession with me is at what was interfering with my liberty right to work a job and not have my life threatened, to not be gang stalked on the job, to not be subject to domestic terrorism and psychological torture, in other words. Okay, the state of California, the people of the state include speaker companies who are continuously, their prosecution is already complete. But the more that I'm documenting the entity, this is exactly what speaker companies engaged in. This is why they offered the place of employment. This is why they offered me the job in the first place, in order to target in furtherance of committing murder and kidnapping. And you know that because of the specific environment, because of the identical pattern of conduct amongst two different regions, amongst two different, so in other words, you don't have just corruption by LAPD. You have corruption that's practiced statewide, because not only did I document this pattern of conduct in a readily identifiable specific environment, which is speaking to the malice of everything that is happening, the malicious engagement and everything that's happening, which is accomplishing surveillance, monitoring, and demons monitor. But it's also speaking to the malice of the public entity. That is the U.S. government that's gang stalking me in California, via California. All right. And the entity is doing so while I have not only left, I left Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles, and I went to Monrovia, California. I went to Arcadia, California. I went to San Diego, California. I went to, and I stayed in hotels, and I documented the fake sun remaining over the top of my head while I'm traveling during the day. You are looking at the asininity of gang stalking in commercial planes. You're looking at the asininity of gang, in other words, very foolish criminals who are, they're not, while the entity that is very foolish in positions of authority, being removed and being embarrassed at the same time for being exposed as sex offenders, obsessed demons, both in need of deliverance that is only in Christ Jesus, but also in need of being removed based on the threat that they are to themselves and the public. and using what is their position to engage in and facilitate public corruption, domestic terrorism, and psychological torture that is also sexually motivated, sexually perverted, all because they want to spend millions of dollars on keeping me under surveillance for no legitimate purpose. All right, while California practices this government experiment on an American citizen, I am the American citizen that's prosecuting it, and they are pointing directly at those who are going to prison and mental asylums for it. This is the explanation as to why you have an elderly woman at 2 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, pacing like a lapdog in the living room over my head. Living in the apartment where a fake sun is both documented rising and setting, remaining for the duration of the day. Okay, it's 12:48, 4 hours from now, that fake sun is still at Woodside Senior Apartments. And I documented the same pattern of conduct in Los Angeles at Alvarado Gardens, where the sun never left Alvarado Gardens over my head. It stayed there, and there's no provision that the sun would be coincidentally in the same manner, because that is not the natural environment where the sun is maintaining this zenith over everyone, everywhere, no matter what it is that you're doing or where you're located or whether you're traveling or remaining stationary, and we're all looking at the same angle of the sun. That's ridiculous. That is literally, it's stupid. Okay, and this is the obvious means of documenting and recognizing what is the U.S. government's engagement in this criminal system throughout the country. And California is engaging in it, and California is still engaging in it, even while California is caught red-handed engaging in it. So that is the delusion. That delusion is speaking to their mental illness in a distinct way that their gang stalking at the outset is speaking to their mental illness. Their mental illness is also directly proven, not just me name calling, not just saying, oh, you're crazy for gang stalking, which is absolutely true. But the P.O.C. is providing evidence showing what is used for purposes of diagnosing somebody that is mentally sick and demented. Literally, their criminal activity is pointing directly to and makes relevant their mentally sick conditions. That is uniform. It's uniform. They are all of that same condition. They're demons who are obsessed. Thereby, that condition is inspiring their obsession. That's why you're gang stalking somebody that you don't even know. That's why you're gang stalking and committing murder and kidnapping against your relative who has never done anything wrong to you, by the way, which even if your relative had done something wrong to you, why is that something that you would cause you to inspire to want to kill and kidnap them and defame them? Why is that a normal thought process in your mind? This is under all circumstances, no matter how you twist it or pivot, speaking to the mental illness of that demon-possessed entity. And demon possession is proven by the evidence, and mental illness is also proven by that evidence, and it is the same material that is used to diagnose the gang stalking entity, which is exposing demonic activity. So the entity that is gang stalking helicopter and doing so in airplanes is speaking to the removal of this false teacher, Paul Leon, who's gang stalking third-party facilitating venue, Hope Church. There is no hope for those that walk in darkness, for those that target the children of God, for those who obsessively continue to do so, while your criminal conduct is literally being proven while the gang stalking police and the gang stalking airports are gang stalking me in the city where you're the mayor. Okay, the entity is doing so while you are also being documented as I document a bunch of elderly, unemployed demons and a population in the city of Ontario where you're the mayor, and they're gang stalking under the fake sun. And as I go to another city, such as West Covina, California, and that same phenomenon amongst a bunch of gang stalkers is also pointing to the fact that Paul Leon is a false teacher and a gang stalking mayor, an oxymoron which requires his removal from office, as I document a neighboring city. It's pointing to what the city of Ontario is doing, because it's impossible that the natural environment would include the sun rising over me in the vehicle where I'm located at 7 in the morning, and it's also over me in the vehicle when I'm parked at that same address in the neighboring cities, such as West Covina, at 4 o'clock in the evening. But that is the pattern of conduct. That's a readily identifiable pattern because it's so impossible to naturally occur. That's where we're getting to demons. That's where we're getting to mental illness. That's where you're getting to people, demons, who are going to be removed from office, while the police in the airport provide evidence against the mayor and themselves to be removed as a corrupt terrorist organization that is using commercial planes. And the Ontario International Airport has a wealth of documentation against it. I mean, flying over the top of my head. Under no circumstances anything but blatant stalking and terrorism. And to do so in such a demented manner, who has ever heard of somebody stalking in planes? No one has ever heard of it. That's both getting to malice, but that malice is proven with regard to the P.O.C. They are, in fact, stalking in planes, and that's speaking to malice. And it's also speaking to what is going to be used against the gang stalkers, which is their mentally sick condition, and that's going to inform federal prison or mental asylum. And the evidence against you is also going to be used to diagnose you and treat you. This is speaking to what is the entity that sought to target another person, engage in this inhumane experiment on the life of an American citizen, a human being, in furtherance of falsely depicting that character that is not merely defamation, that of a tortious nature, that is criminal defamation, that is in conformity to a criminal pattern of conduct that the state of California is practicing. It is the U.S. government's system throughout the United States. This is happening, as you're aware, because a fake sun is in every single state in this country, not the natural environment. This is what Satan, in other words, is doing throughout the country, throughout what is a corrupt entity. All right. The entity is doing so while it is also being documented, and that's speaking to the impermissible threat. Nonetheless, so I just want to elaborate a little bit. The entity is obsessing over what it is that I'm typing on my device, and the entity that is gang stalking, as I have proven the impossible. Okay, the reason for the Lord Jesus, my Lord and Savior, permitting me the ability to live through the conspiracy to take my life by a corrupt government that is demon infected, a bunch of people that serve Satan, who are given over to a reprobate mind, who are walking in darkness, who engage in sacrificing American citizens, legally speaking, but sacrificing human beings onto Satan, that is taking their lives, and if not physically taking their lives, such as resulting in a death, they take their lives and they take their reputation by kidnapping them, and accomplishing kidnapping is through the abuse of the criminal justice system and the court system at large, where you are quote unquote diagnosed for mental illness that you do not in fact suffer from, and where you are prosecuted for a crime that you in fact did not commit. This is part of the greater problem that's a lot of times not a lot of times, it is inadequately addressed because the system that I am exposing has never been proven before. So it's not even addressed when people are being released from prison after serving 22 years for a crime that they didn't commit. When you have a system that's engaging in surveillance, that's not an accident. It's not an accident. These are the casualties of injustice, where the U.S. government is engaging in what is this very system that I'm exposing, that I'm subject to. And the entity sought to not only kidnap me, I want to be clear, Tracy Banks salivates over what is my demise, wants me dead. And it's not just Tracy Banks. Understand, Tracy Banks is demon possessed. These demons, they are one in the spirit. I cannot prosecute because you cannot prove the spirit, the spiritual realm. Excuse me, I take that back. You cannot prove what they are doing in the spirit, but and I mean that literally, because I cannot prove in court this demon is targeting me with witchcraft and is spiritually attacking me. That's nothing that you cannot prove that in court. But what you can prove is what you are. I am proving the spiritual realm while I'm prosecuting federal group stalking and monitoring. The fake sun, that's the spiritual realm. The engineered light, that's the spiritual realm. The amplified audible activity, that's the spiritual realm. While you're looking at them walking and driving and flying, you are looking at the spiritual realm. They're demons. They're demons, and they're pacing. A demon that is hideous in the spirit is hiding within the vessel of a human being that wants to look normal, wants to be accepted, wants to be unsuspected. And so that person is walking, but that's a demon that is hideous in the spirit. That spirit you don't see, but you're looking at the spiritual realm. While they're in that specific environment, you are looking at the spiritual realm. And I have proven the spiritual aspect of this pattern of conduct. I have proven the spiritual realm. And that's what I mean. I want to make sure that I clarify that. Because in court, you can't prove that this demon, Jason Isaac Fields, is spiritually attacking me, which he is. And he is attacking me in the spirit and interfering with my dreams. Okay, that's a reality, and that is something that, again, in no courthouse, they're not your Lord and Savior. These are things that Christ Jesus himself is judging, and he's going to handle it. He doesn't miss any detail. He's sitting up watching the demons who are focused on me, and he's standing over all of it. They're not getting away with any aspect of it. I am prosecuting in the natural. which is, again, literally what is my job. And I am also proving the spiritual. And while I have done that, it is also my desire and my purpose to let you know, while you are aware of the spiritual realm, I've proven that. And it's also accomplishing a prosecution in the physical in a court with tangible evidence. You also need to know these demons are obsessing about what it is that I'm documenting on my device. And this is relevant to the ways in which the demon possessed, who are not in my presence, who are obsessed with me, who have lied about the nature of a non-existent relationship between me and myself. And that is, for example, Tracy Banks, who has lied about the nature of our relationship, lied about things that happened, just made up all type of stuff. Just like she has made up who she is as a person and has made up things about me, while she left out the fact that she placed cameras, the entity placed cameras inside of my private home, has been watching me and obsesses over my nude body. They engage in masturbating. They engage in masturbating, having sex with each other while they are spiritually attacking me and gang stalking me in the physical. She left that part out too. She didn't talk about that. This is a liar, okay, whose credibility she doesn't have any. Okay, I don't have to lie about anything, nor do I have to lie about what I've been stating from the beginning, that the entity is stalking me from city to city in helicopters. I've proven every aspect of the pattern of conduct, and I fully established my credibility, and it's for your benefit in order that you know. And I'm also going to prosecute that which I cannot prosecute. No, I cannot prosecute the fact, because you cannot prove the fact of what are witches. That includes Tracy Banks, that includes Jason Isaac Fields, who are spiritually attacking me, and that they're not the only ones. These demons, the Ontario Police Department, let me be clear, they're practicing witchcraft. They're stalking in a helicopter. They're hovering in relevant position. They were not flying off from some distant place. The ability to, with simultaneity to what I'm doing on my phone, engage in relevant positioning is somebody that was a psychopath, somebody that's a psychopath. And that psychopathic disorder is shown because they're using a helicopter to engage in what is also known stalking in an environment that proves their mental illness and their criminal activity together. And what it is that they were doing, as I am subject to what is gang stalking in a helicopter, which is an unconstitutional and inhumane criminal act committed by a corrupt police department. It's pointing to that whole department, by the way, as well. But they're engaging in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture. And that is going to prosecute a police department. But again, the P.O.C. goes well beyond that police department. It's pointing to the mayor. It's pointing to the fire department. It's pointing to the municipality at large. It's pointing to the population. It's pointing to a statewide P.O.C., which, again, I have been diligent enough to document in multiple cities and in multiple counties what is an unmistakable and impossible collection of circumstances that no person could ever manufacture. I couldn't make it up. But the entity makes up information, though, that it has no ability to prove or support. They are engaged in what is not only manufacturing information, you're talking about what is necessarily exaggerating. And even what they exaggerate, the entity is exaggerating something that is manufactured, literally. So I want to be clear, the entity has absolutely nothing with regard to everything that these demons obsessed with me and also seeking to make up information about me. And this is, again, born of what is very sick about them. They're obsessed with me. They're envious of me. They want to be me. They're envious of what is my ability to identify them in the spirit, to prosecute them here on earth, and also the inability to overwhelm me, to overcome me with all of the satanic devices that they've used. They're also envious of that. These demons of the Ontario Police are practicing witchcraft while they're hovering in a helicopter, very close necessarily in order to cross path under the fake sun amongst engineered light, and in concert with a demon that is engaging in what is also known, that's stalking. While they're in relevant position in the parking lot, all they're doing is maintaining. You'll have the entity doing the same thing all day long and all night long, multiple faces, same POC at a facilitating venue that is designed to maintain that corporate engagement in criminal surveillance, which is demonic. They're all monitoring me. All of that is already understood. You need to know that they're practicing witchcraft. These are demons. Satan's spirit is using the bodies of those who are employed by the Ontario Police Department. And their mental illness is so severe, they have sacrificed their careers in law enforcement. They're still willing, they're so obsessed with me that they are still willing to further render illegitimate even more the reputation of the Ontario Police Department gang stalking. You're not doing anything but gang stalking. No one is questioning that. Suppressing the evidence online right now, because that's all the demons are focused on. They're just focused on what they can do right now. That's the hustler mentality of Satan, who is an ignoramus. Second to second, what can I get away with for the next 2 seconds? What can I get away with for the next 17 seconds? Not thinking about the future, not thinking about the bigger picture, not mindful or aware of or understanding the totality of circumstances, only the second by second mind state. And you lose. I already have you surrounded. Okay, not only spiritually, you surrounded, you are physically surrounded, and you are also surrounded with regard to my prosecution. You're surrounded with facts, you're surrounded with a body of evidence, and you are not escaping. What are the inevitable consequences for this unprecedented violation of an American citizen, violation of human rights? Okay, and the entity is doing so while obsessing over what it is that I'm typing. And so this witch that is, again, engaging in psychological warfare is a part of the invisible aspect of the pattern of conduct. And because I've already established my credibility, I've already proven what the entity is indeed doing. This is gang stalking, never before proven, and never before accurately and adequately defined in order to understand. And this is because a lot of people that don't want to acknowledge the spiritual realm, they're ignorant about the spiritual realm, you don't believe, that's fine. You have a constitutional right to exercise your freedom of religion, which includes non-belief. But it's not accurate with regard to understanding the criminal system of federal group stalking and monitoring, where you cannot disregard the spiritual realm. And this is not just me wanting to preach to someone and speak about things that I'm just passionate and dogmatic about. It's speaking to what is an inevitable aspect of that P.O.C. This is how you have the explanation for what is light that's just floating on a ceiling all day long. That is not a natural occurrence. You cannot deny the spiritual realm, regardless of what is your personal opinion, your personal emotional state towards such topics, based on whatever it is that happened to you and those who were engaged in spiritual things that caused you to dislike the subject altogether. All of that, I'm not sorry to say, but I will say it understandably. It is absolutely irrelevant. Your personal feelings about the reality of the spiritual realm. Okay, God himself is spirit. Okay, and that spirit is something that you cannot see. The prosecution of the state of California, the prosecution of what is federal group stalking and monitoring, is the ability to use tangible evidence to prove that which you cannot see. And it is shown through the fake sun. It is shown through the amplified audible activity. It is shown through the simultaneity of activity creation. Those are demons who stalk with activity while they're monitoring people that they don't know, like myself, monitoring things that they don't see. How did you hear me moving my hand in my pocket and stalking with noise? It's not coincidental that you're flying over in helicopter under the fake sun when I'm documenting and pointing my camera is not evidence to an outsider that's not monitoring that I'm documenting you. Okay, the entity is engaging in what is under all circumstances also admitting to the very allegations that I have waged and I have proven. This is speaking to what is that which you cannot deny, which is the spiritual realm. You can no longer deny it. You can continue to deny it, but you cannot reasonably disregard the spiritual realm. And this is for your benefit with regard to the return of Christ Jesus, who loves you, died for your sins, rose from the dead, and is literally waiting for you to humble yourself and confess your sins and accept him in your heart as your Lord and Savior, which is the only way that you have any sort of protection from who is your arch enemy, Satan himself, who is also a spirit, who uses people in the sick ways that you're seeing the Ontario police being used. The shameful and embarrassing act of stalking. You're supposed to be noble and engaging in what is protecting and serving. You're supposed to be a representation of what is upright and right in the world. Okay, imperfect. Okay, but it's supposed to be that which is representing a lot of what this country stands for, and that is the. Because there's an argument that this country stands for a lot of other ignoble things, but nonetheless, being as positive and being as complimentary as I can be, Satan will drag you to the depths of what is a shameful being, and then it's embarrassing to the point that it's humiliating what you were doing. You chose to do it. And the entity is doing so while they are under the impression, under the control of Satan. Satan is using their bodies. Satan is using their mind. Satan is using them while they are in positions of government, gang stalking. And it's the same with all the demon possessed that are remaining at a venue. And this is surrounding them with facts and circumstances and the law to prosecute those human vessels who are demon possessed. So I cannot prosecute you for being demon possessed, but I can prosecute you for gang stalking, which is a byproduct of your demon possession. And that's how you're getting to the spiritual realm. And I am fully executing my constitutional rights in doing so. And it is fully evidence that is tangible and that which is submitted in a court to prosecute as the pattern of conduct, no matter how new and unfamiliar it is speaking to that which no person could ever come up with on their own. I couldn't manufacture this. I couldn't make this up. And I couldn't make up the evidence. I can't make these demons fly over me and follow me from city to city in helicopter. I can't make them fly in circles around me everywhere that I'm going. I can't make some sun remain over my head, including while I'm driving out of the state of California into Nevada where I stay and where the sun rolls over me in Nevada. I can't make that up, but I can document it, surrounding the demon possessed with evidence that is irreconcilable and insurmountable, in order that you are able to understand that which is invisible, the spiritual realm. And that's what's relevant regarding what the demons are doing while they are over the apartment complex, necessarily already stalking, engaging in surveillance with the demon in the parking lot, and is in relevant position. Who begins moving the vehicle with simultaneity to my taking pictures of them? That's activity creation. Yes, they are fleeing because they don't want more pictures being taken, but they're still monitoring. They're moving in engineered light. They're using their brake lights. It's light activity creation. And before I walk outside and start taking pictures, they're sitting engaging in surveillance on the ground in the parking lot. The Ontario Police is sitting in the sky space, hovering in a helicopter, engaging in surveillance together. As I'm pointing out just those two aspects, because traffic all around the apartment complex is serving for monitoring. All right. The air traffic, which is, again, not amplified until I start capturing video of it, is serving for monitoring. They're engaging, understand the significance in how surveillance is executed in a demonic environment. It's not sunlight that's touching everything. This is the unintelligent engagement at which I've pointed out to everyone in the world. The light source that's hovering over you is not the natural environment. It is an ornament that's designed to cause you to never question and never use your brain with regard to what's happening in the environment around you. In other words, you are subconsciously recognizing that the sunlight that's touching everything is the product of the sun that you see in the sky space, and that is not the case. Also, that same character of light, which is peculiar as you investigate this light that's supposedly sunlight under a sun that's supposedly remaining all day long, meaning it's not the sun, neither is that sunlight because of the character of that light. It's also that same character of light that's present at night when the fake sun is also not there. You can separate the fake sun from the engineered light. This is something that Satan has put over all of us throughout the United States, because I'm prosecuting as an American citizen. All right. So I'm leaving it to the United States as I'm prosecuting the U.S. government that's engaging in the P.O.C. in California. So Satan has placed what are fake suns over all of us in order to never cause you to question what is surrounding, what's touching everything. This light that's touching everything is how surveillance is underway also on communication devices. All right. And with regard to just being in that light, moving around in that light, both you and the people around you. And they are also demons. And when you're subject to the targeting system, meaning we're all under surveillance, but with regard to the targeting system, the entity is engaging in what is surveillance. And in the United States, terrorism and psychological torture and psychological warfare, which is the invisible aspect to the criminal pattern of conduct that I've proven that the demons are doing. Gang stalking is real, in other words, and gang stalking coexists with what is psychological warfare in the mind of that targeted individual that is subject to a very real criminal pattern of conduct. And it is the criminal pattern of conduct that demons execute against the person that's being targeted. And this is designed to create what is, as we have vaguely referred to it, mental illness. And it is actually not mental illness, because you're talking about what are human beings that are subject to what is unlawful and inhumane experiments while they're being targeted. And human beings are capable and will likely reasonably anticipate reacting to such targeting in such psychotic means. Okay, thoughts that don't belong to you, in ways in which placing thoughts of whatever nature, okay, I am covered by Christ Jesus, so these demons are not permitted to do the things that they've tried to do. But even so, the Lord has permitted me to experience it so that I can tell you about it, because you need to know. It's not mental illness in the way in which the corrupt government that wants to kidnap and falsely depict your character and even wants you to concede to being mentally ill, as it is unconstitutionally defined under laws that exist in this country that engages in these inhumane experiments on human beings, where I've also shown you actual mental illness as these demons define it is actually what they suffer from, which is how Satan behaves. Satan will call you the sinner and the criminal when Satan is the one that's engaging in the very acts that you are being accused of. Satan is the one that will call you a sex offender when Satan knows very well that Satan is obsessed with my genitalia and is stalking me in bathrooms. Satan knows very well that it is the one that is a mentally deranged, okay, while trying to criminally defame that other person. This is what the demon-possessed are doing. And they are, in fact, mentally ill, which evidence proves. And no creation of some sort of illusion of mental illness. They are proving their own mental illness when they're stalking as a whole population. As an entire population, a government committed to spending money, a lot of it, on a ceaseless basis for one person, for no legitimate purpose. This is how the U.S. government engages in experiments throughout this country. And it's what California is still providing evidence against itself pertaining to. Showing that their mental illness persists. Your mental illness, yes, by using helicopters to stalk somebody. And you're stalking them and monitoring them because they are aware of it, because they're documenting you and enforcing their rights. And this is something that makes you angry. There are broad terms that speak to that, and the ways in which I have described that is psychopathic. The decisions that the demons make, the behaviors that they engage in, and the decisions that they make actually and in fact bears no reflection whatsoever on the mental health of the one that they are targeting. This illusion, that's malice, high malice. By a corrupt government. That illusion that a corrupt government uses to falsely depict the character, that's exactly why federal prison is mandated. And aside from what is the inhumane system of gang stalking in the first place. Okay, so I want to speak to the entity that is gang stalking. I am inside of the apartment where the angles that I'm capturing in images and in video. And I want to read those timestamps, and then I want to go to what is it that the Ontario police is obsessing over? And this is shared by Tracy Banks. She leaves the apartment. She doesn't leave the pattern of conduct. This demon is inside of the apartment pacing around. It's her apartment that's filled with engineer light. It's her apartment where the fake sun is over me. She's still a part of the same entity. She's the same demon-possessed entity, and she's aware of everything that's going on as it's happening. This is where you're getting out of what is the superficial reality, the illusion of the reality. It's not an illusion with regard to Tracy Banks being physically absent. That's true. That's reality. Everyone can see. Well, I documented. You can't see because she could have been in her room and she wasn't. I spoke to in my video the fact that Tracy Banks left the apartment already. So she is physically absent. She is very much present as a part of the entity. Not only the entity that's acting in furtherance of the conspiracy to murder and kidnap. That's why you're gang stalking in the first place. She is also a part of the same demon-possessed entity. This is a sharing. This is one mind. And this is also getting past a lot of the things that you are ignorant about. When you're dealing with people who are in different bodies, you have different names, you were born at different times, and yet you are physically separated. I mean, unless you're conjoined or something, but you still have you're two separate vessels. But with regard to the spiritual aspect, which is invisible, and that's the aspect that you cannot prosecute in court, and I'm mindful of that. The prosecution of the P.O.C., however, is pointing you right to that spiritual realm, which is undeniable. And I will speak to what the demons are doing spiritually while they're gang stalking with regard to the pattern of conduct, which is already proven. And what also they're engaging in, what they're aware of while they're stalking in a helicopter and stalking by the people that stayed in the parking lot, physically speaking, keeping a woman under surveillance in a private space, doing so with regard to what is the evidence that they are already aware of is on the record, speaking. You're so psychotic, you're so obsessed, and you're still gang stalking, even while you know you're going to prison and mental asylums. You know that. You know it because I told you, because that's where you're going. And you're still stalking. That is speaking to their mental illness. And that's speaking to their obsession, which is, again, on its face. It's designed to be that which is pointing to the mental illness of one that would allege the police are harassing, strangers are stalking. I'm hearing things and I don't know where it's coming from, or something weird, like using the appliances, using the communication devices, inanimate objects to monitor you in the apartment. These are the things that demons employ to psychologically torture you. In the physical, you're subject to psychological warfare mentally, okay, as well. This is where they are in the spiritual realm practicing witchcraft and targeting you. And the average targeted individual that is not, again, supernaturally covered with regard to the ability to not, because a fragile and complex human being you are subject and vulnerable to the very purpose for targeting you in that manner in the first place. Gang stalking plus psychological warfare, that is the formula for causing someone to literally come apart at the seams. That is designed for the entity engages in the experiment and then they step back and watch and let's see what's happened. Let's see what happens now. That's literally what the demon possessed are doing. This is what Satan is doing while using those who are demon possessed. Satan is using them. Okay. And that's what they do. They're engaged in a combination of ingredients and then they sit back and watch and wait for that human being to react. And typically the reaction is some sort of breaking down of a human being. And they also were under the system of gang stalking. They want to get you into that state where you are coming apart at the seams, if you will, in order to take your life, in order to watch you take your own life, in order to kidnap you, put you in a ward, frame you for a crime, however the entity is going to abuse the court system, the criminal justice system, in order to kidnap you. Okay, that's the purpose of that. And that's demonic. The psychological warfare aspect is what the entity is obsessed with, while they're monitoring on devices, because I'm documenting on my device. So while I'm in the apartment and Ontario police is gang stalking by hovering over a senior citizen complex in a helicopter, as I open the front door and start taking pictures, this is what I'm doing at what is 12:13 p.m. and 3 seconds. I'm getting the fake sun over the top of my head. At 12:13 and 8 seconds, that's 0.3 seconds later, 3 milliseconds later, I get the demon that's stalking in the parking lot. They're parked. Oh, well, they're parked. And immediately as I start taking pictures at 12:05, you'll see the brake lights on. This is when they begin moving their vehicle, which is activity creation. Not only a demon that's ceasing from engaging in surveillance. This demon is still gang stalking and is monitoring even while they're moving. But they're moving with simultaneity to the operation of my device. While the entity engages in the pattern of conduct, I want to be clear, because the entity engages in the P.O.C. monitoring the evidence. Oh, this is the inept and inferior demons. The entity that is monitoring evidence and listens to me break down their demonic system while they're obsessively gang stalking me and obsessed with everything that I say. They're obsessed with the way that I think. They're obsessed with the way that I sit on a toilet. They're obsessed with the way that I chew my food. They're obsessed with the way that I look at myself in the mirror. This is the reality of Satan. Okay, this is what is their condition with regard to that stalking as a population. They are demon possessed. The entity that is gang stalking and monitoring on devices, surveillance via devices, which is proven. They're driving in engineer light. They're driving under the fake sun that's over me. This is somebody that's gang stalking, and they're gang stalking while the police are in position over the apartment complex. And as I take pictures at 12:03 and 8 milliseconds, at 12:13 and 8 seconds, the demon is moving its vehicle after I'm opening the door, and they are parked in the middle of the parking lot, not moving. I start taking pictures, they're moving. And this is what you'll see at 12:13 and 8 seconds. At 12:13 and, let me see, it's second by second. 12:13 and 11 seconds. So this is seconds. 12:13 and 3 seconds, the fake sun. 12:13 and 8 seconds, the demon that's gang stalking in the parking lot that's initially parked, and then they start moving. So that's within 5 seconds. They start moving their vehicle immediately as I start taking pictures, because the demons know that I'm documenting. I'm going to get the environment, I'm going to get you, or I'm going to get you in the environment, whatever variation, because you're understanding the P.O.C. The demons are anticipating what I'm doing. This demon starts moving their vehicle out of the parking lot. This demon is gang stalking. This demon is not gang stalking by themselves. The entity remains around me. So you just have what is the demons that's in the parking lot, the demons that's over the apartment building in helicopter, and the demon that begins moving as they are engaged in surveillance online and are monitoring my device in violation of Title 18, Section 2261A, subsections 1 and 2, where the fake sun and the engineered light that they are creating activity in, sharing in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture, which is unprecedented with regard to the prosecution for the first time. But this is existing federal law. They're engaged in federal stalking under Title 18, engaging in surveillance on the venue of the internet, on communication devices in concert with the government. And they're also engaging in what is stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, 34 U.S.C. 12291, as the population that is gang stalking shall be prosecuted for stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. Understanding the malice of that system, and it is stalking by a population. In addition to that, the population at Woodside is going to be prosecuted as residents gang stalking and as AVANATH employees stalking as employees and residents at the venue in violation of the Violence Against Women Act at this HUD regulated property. The airport is stalking. The police department is stalking. The population, the city of Ontario, the people of the state are stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. All right, the entity is doing so as I'm taking a picture at 12:13 and 11 seconds. So we're going from the fake sun at 12:13 and 3 seconds. The demon begins moving the vehicle at 12:13 and 8 seconds. At 12:13 and 11 seconds, I point my finger to recognize the significance of the vehicle that begins driving toward the gate that's parked along. That is along Vine Avenue. They're driving toward Vine Avenue. That is, they're driving west in the parking lot toward Vine. And they're doing so as I am capturing pictures. And you will see that again in the image as I point my finger, pointing to the significance of that activity creation with simultaneity to my operation of my device while the demon knows that they're being documented. And they're still monitoring. Even when the entity engages in what is sitting still, like MARMMAK, the Arizona plates, under the fake sun that you already know is still here after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is how you're going to prosecute, because they're the same entity. So you already know what's going on with regard to the population that's maintaining activity creation as a joint effort to engage in surveillance with the gang stalkers who fly over the apartment. They're not coming from a distance. They were already sitting there hovering and cross path as I take pictures from 12:13 and 3 seconds, 12:13 and 8 seconds, 12:13 p.m. and 11 seconds, and at 12:13 and 20 seconds. So that is, again, 9 seconds later from capturing the demon that's flying flying, basically, but driving out of the gate along Vine Street. Simultaneity of activity is accomplished while a demon that is already in position to engage in activity creation using a helicopter in a position where they were gang stalking together while sitting idle over the apartment complex in helicopter and sitting idle in the parking lot. This is a means of surrounding while the demons are all inside of the units of Woodside Senior Apartment, specifically the ones who are going to prison and prison and mental asylums in units 33 through 64. All right, they're physically surrounding at all times, and they're supplementing activity, adding to activity while demons just pace in and out of the parking lot. They pace around the apartment complex, and they also fly around the complex. They're doing that on an ongoing basis, including while they're not amplifying it. The demons engage in amplified audible activity, pacing while the fake sun is over me, engaging in surveillance, in other words, engaging in domestic terrorism, in other words, providing corroborating evidence against its own co-defendant, the people of the state, while I capture this video 9 seconds later where the police are gang stalking in a helicopter, speaking of public corruption. But you already have probable cause to prosecute the state for public corruption where the people of the state are gang stalking, which the specific environment directly exposes. All right. But nonetheless, at 12:13 and 20 seconds, that's where the entity is immediately flying over while a demon is stalking in the path with light as they move that vehicle toward the Vine Avenue exit to drive out. The brake lights, the movement under the fake sun creates light activity as well. The helicopter over my head while the fake sun is remaining, where it remains until sunset, by the way. That's how a population is stalking one person at one location. That environment remains, and the pattern of conduct recognizing how they're creating activity, and that's recognizing how surveillance is underway, and that's the significance of keeping an ornament in the sky in a way where you would never question the significance of that, because you're thinking subconsciously, because most of us, especially if you're not a meteorologist or something, you're not sitting up, oh, I wonder what is going on with the sun, and if the sun is actually the cause of this light that's on the ground. Most of us are too busy doing whatever that it is that you do, but a lot of us are too busy, especially in the United States. We are intentionally kept very busy in pursuit of material gain, basically, and however you do that. But a lot of us are too busy. You're not sitting around doing that unless you're doing that for trade. Things like NASA, however, but they have, surprisingly, while in a relevant field, not said anything about this supernatural occurrence regarding the fake sun. That's in every state necessarily, because there could not be only one sun where I'm documenting it rising and setting on any day. That collection of facts will never exist in a natural environment. But somehow NASA and those who report the weather on a daily basis, showing you, telling you about what the weather is going to be, no one's ever caught that. No one's ever mentioned it. And you need to understand that that's a part of the system that surrounds us as well. That's deliberate. Okay, there are those who are ignorant, and there are those who are very much not ignorant. And Satan has a very real system in operation. The P.O.C. shows you the demon possessed who are gang stalking, who are engaging in surveillance on devices, and it's a matter of public corruption. Okay, the entity is doing so while I am on my device, and in this specific environment where the police are outside, engaged in surveillance, with the demon stalking in the parking lot, just coming onto the grounds, pacing in engineered light. In doing so, as I open up the door to get the environment, and then I close the door, and you see the engineered light that's framing the defendant Tracy Banks's front door, and it's that same light activity in the absence of the fake sun. By absence, I mean when it's covered up. Okay, and on a cloudy day and in the dark, that same engineer light, not sunlight, is on the ceiling and along the east living room wall. Has nothing to do with the fake sun. There is no vantage point or a position where the sun is creating sunlight on the inside of the apartment. It's not reflecting off of anything, and the window that's covered with blinds, covered with window coverings. Sunlight is not doing such gymnastics where it's bending underneath into windows, both reflecting off of those windows and creating the shape of the windows on the sidewalk outside, and also piercing through the windows, through closed blind slats, through what are window coverings, and pointing upward to slide across the ceiling and along the east wall down to the floor, framing that door, both in the during the day and in the dark and on a cloudy day, regardless of the nature of the weather outside. That's not sunlight. That's evidence of what is a stalker in the parking lot, and that stalker is being documented, and that stalker that knows that stalks with activity, and by exiting the Vine Avenue gate, they are stalking in the path with and simultaneously creating light activity. At that same moment, that's when the demons who are engaging in surveillance already over the apartment complex flies over. You have the combination of relevant positioning, amplified helicopter activity, and light activity, which the people of the state acting directly and vicariously are sharing in that specific environment under the fake sun that you know is not going anywhere, as I've already documented it, setting. This is during the 7 a.m. hour and setting, rising during the 7 a.m. hour and setting after 6 p.m. You can break up the sunrise and the sunset all you want, but you have both a sunrise and a sunset at one address, and that is the collection of facts speaking to a gang stalking entity that is very severely mentally ill. And the spiritual realm, the part that is, again, relevant to the prosecution of the state, the spiritual realm, which is not capable of being reasonably ignored upon the prosecution of domestic terrorism by the demon-possessed entity that engages in what is conducting experiments on American citizens in order to harm them, in order to, what these demons really want to do is in service to Satan, as though the Lord Jesus was going to permit them through their sex rituals, through their acts of criminal conduct and targeting and psychological torture, that they're going to steal, essentially, that is spiritually, a spiritual act of stealing spiritual gifts, such as the ability, you are witnessing a spiritual gift as I am making plain to you what is happening in the spirit. And by in the spirit, I mean what people are doing right in front of your face, which has spiritual significance. What people are doing right in your face, which is now becoming what is legally significant. And the entity is engaging in what is gang stalking, which is the practice of witchcraft. While you're looking at them, they're not levitating on a broom. Okay, nobody's walking around with red horns and tails, red tails coming out of their backsides. Nobody is floating around in the sky space. Okay, but I mean, their bodies floating around in the sky space. You're looking at a helicopter and planes in the sky space, but you're not looking at people that are levitating in the sky. That's not what you're looking at with regard to witchcraft. Spiritually speaking, there are demonic spirits that you cannot see. I am discerning the demons that are present, that are using the people that surround me, who are targeting me. And the only way to prove that is to provide what is that body of evidence of that which is tying them all together, and what they are always doing when they're engaging in the same pattern of conduct, monitoring me. Monitoring is a spiritual act. It's a dark spiritual act. Demons monitor. Angels of the Lord do not monitor. Okay, monitoring is that which is the purpose for psychologically harming someone. That's what Satan's purpose is: to disturb you mentally, psychologically, emotionally, to devastate you in one way or another, to break you down. Satan hates you. Satan is using a bunch of people who are all demon possessed, who are engaging in a system of psychological torture and stalking, surveillance, monitoring. The monitoring act itself is psychological torture. is psychologically harmful. All right, the entity is doing so while, I want to be clear, somebody that is monitoring, a human being that's monitoring another, is somebody that is mentally ill. And that's what the evidence of the P.O.C. is showing. Human beings that are monitoring another human being are mentally ill by definition. Okay, and I have proven the mental illness by prosecuting the gang stalking entity. And this will be subjecting that entity to mental examinations, to confinement in mental wards, to federal prison. Okay, the entity is in, and it's not just those that are engaged in systematic gang stalking, such as by residence and employment, or just a fool that's so obsessed that they want to return on an ongoing systematic basis so that I can continuously document you. That's somebody that also is subject to federal prison, because you're dealing with what is intolerable. Domestic terrorism is going to be met with what is meting out tremendous justice. All right, but the entity that's engaging in what is the P.O.C. domestic terrorism, you're being prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring, is going to make you documented as a violent sex offender. Gang stalking, federal group stalking is an egregiously violent sex offense. Excuse me, it is an egregious sex offense committed as a public entity. That's what's going on your criminal record as a terrorist. You're going down as a specific type of terrorist, a violent sex offender. And in addition to that, it is speaking to what is your mind state, which is dubious. Your mind state is demented. And that is also what is relevant with regard to your being prosecuted as a domestic terrorist engaging in what is federal group stalking and monitoring. This is what's going to be on their record with regard to the public knowing who they are, what they've committed, and the ways in which they maliciously derive pleasure out of targeting innocent American citizens. That is something that the world needs to know. When you want to apply for a job and you engaged in gang stalking somebody, if you engage in gang stalking somebody as a police officer or as an officer of the court, you're done with the practice of law. You're done with law enforcement. You're done with being a fire department. You're done with, being any sort of fireman. You're done with that. That's not, you can't go anywhere in any territorial jurisdiction in the U.S. and pick that trade up. You're done with that. You sacrificed that when you engaged in gang stalking, period. You're done, okay? You're done with that, but I want to be clear, the average prosecution of the population that's being prosecuted, the entity is not capable of going somewhere else without that criminal record that's for a purpose to inform the public. Okay, so this is what's relevant with regard to the mind state. That's a national security threat. With regard to the sexual violence inherent to what is targeting, terrorizing an American citizen in concert with the government. This is somebody that terrorized an American citizen and did so assuming that the government was going to cover them, was going to protect them, was going to aid them. If the target individual tried to say anything, oh, the government will just swoop in and do an average criminal act of criminal summoning and harass them a little bit, intimidate them, even kidnap them, and just take them from one place to another. This is what the entity relies on when they're engaging in the bully system of federal group stalking and monitoring. You are going to be prosecuted for that. You're a terrorist and you're a sex offender. That's exactly what's going on your record. And you are mentally ill. Be prepared for that to be a part of your record. Be prepared, because that's what's happening. And this is supported by the evidence of what they do. They did it. How else are you diagnosed for mental illness? You sit down and you voluntarily have an encounter with somebody that you have agreed to speak to examine you, to observe you in order to diagnose you. And the circumstances may vary. But with regard to the pattern of conduct, the entity has forced itself on me. And in the very nature of encountering them is relevant to their mind state. Having no legitimate interest, why are you trying to force yourself on me? Why are you interested in following me around? Oh, you think you can follow me around and you not be suspected? You think that you're seen as not following me around because you live there or because you work there? Oh, you think that you're not seen as following me around because you just drove through and made a delivery, or because you just drove by, or because you came and you're visiting somebody else and I never met you before? This is all the malice of the entity that's gang stalking. That is speaking to a psychopath that thinks that they can target someone and never be suspected, never be known. That sort of mens rea, that sort of criminal mind state, that's exactly what is targeted in that prosecution. Now, the entity that's targeting has become targeted. Okay, they are going to be targeted with regard to how the wheels of justice are going to deal with the mind state, the purpose behind psychologically torturing and also engaging in what is stalking in the physical in a way that was never supposed to be proven or identified. That is entirely sick. What in you is wrong to the degree that you would even participate in that? Even on one day, when I drive through your city in Moreno Valley, California, and you're gang stalking as I go to the In-N-Out, you're gang stalking. What in you thinks that that's okay? They're gang stalking to murder someone. They're gang stalking to psychologically torture someone. They're gang stalking to harass and terrorize them. What in you is wrong that you would engage in that? Well, that's for the professionals to deal with. As I document you, be prepared for that criminal record as a terrorist and as one who is a violent sex offender who is mentally ill, officially, based on your criminal engagement and what is a very demented P.O.C. An actual mental illness is unveiled as opposed to the illusion, the criminal defamation, the unconstitutional and vague definition and understanding of mental illness by psychopaths who are doing nothing other than projecting. All of the mentally ill psychiatrists who engaged in kidnapping me, having never met me, but they admitted it themselves. While they engaged in criminal defamation of any means, they admitted to engaging in what is federal group stalking monitoring. And those are actually mentally ill state actors. And they're losing their license. You're done with the medical field, by the way. Like I said, justice is going to whatever it is that you extended in order to participate. Be prepared to lose it. And don't cry about it, because you thought that you were going to target somebody else and that they were going to suffer. And in fact, justice requires you're going to suffer. How about that? You're going to lose. You're going to lose that which you extended. That goes to if you want to use your kids. Okay, well, you don't value them very much because you're losing your kids. You represent a threat to them, by the way, while you're gang stalking by residents. They're living in this unstable and chaotic and demonic, dark, terrorizing environment with you, who is engaging in an unfathomable sex offense while holding the hands of your kids. And you think that nobody sees that nobody can analyze that no one sees through that superficial veneer. You are literally a mental case that is also representing a threat to those kids. And all I'm doing is I'm going from the classification of each type of what is the same criminal. Gang stalkers with kids, gang stalkers in the medical field, gang stalkers in the legal profession, gang stalkers that are unemployed, gang stalkers that are committed to it by residents, gang stalkers that are committed to it by employment, gang stalkers that are doing so just as a passerby, where I'm being terrorized with engineer light while you're crossing path and passing me on the freeway. Where does that create sunlight moving all through my car, which is a threat to my life, while I'm driving a dangerous machine? And I documented it hundreds of times, where the entity is at the same time keeping a fake sun rising and setting over these psychopaths in a helicopter, and this psychopath engaging in what is stalk. That's how obsessed you are with me, and you don't even know me, and you're stalking. And it's not a product of someone imagining it. This is how the system of federal group stalking monitoring is executed, and it's no longer a secret. So I'm laying all of that humongous pattern of conduct, again, the hustler mindset, but again, not a very good hustler, because I have out-hustled the entity that is gang stalking. They're only thinking about second by second by second. There's a whole body of evidence that surrounds you. The sun would never be over my head while I'm looking at you stalking in the path, in the parking lot, where the feds know where you are at. You genius. You're so smart. And then the genius fly over by helicopter. And then they fly over with a commercial plane. And everybody that's at the apartment complex is out of a house and home. The entity is doing so while they are documenting, while they are monitoring my documentation. And so what's going on is the entity is obsessing over what it is that I'm documenting on my device. And it is relevant to the psychological warfare that coexists with the psychological torture of gang stalking. And this is, again, the inhumane experiment that the U.S. government is subjecting American citizens to, who are ignorant about the fact that they're being spiritually attacked by Satan. Satan, who uses people, okay, who are demon possessed and who are very much targeting you in the spirit. And understand what that means. Literally, targeting you in the spirit is something that is underway when you are experiencing thoughts that don't belong to you. Meaning thoughts that they refer to that as intrusive thoughts. Okay, that has been used to unjustly diagnose mental illness by people that's not your mental illness. You are being spiritually attacked. When you're being gang stalked, this is the P.O.C. The entity is engaging in what is psychological warfare, and it's coinciding with what is gang stalking. That part of the P.O.C. I've proven. The entity is engaging what is trying to psychologically bully me, trying to psychologically intimidate, using this this defeated campaign of psychological warfare, in other words. And I'm stepping outside and I'm documenting these demons gang stalking in helicopter and gang stalking by being parked in the middle of the parking lot and as they are crossing path and stalking with light, and they're engaged in monitoring on my device. And the substance of what I'm documenting are demons who maintain an ongoing threat. As I documented, for example, the entity that I've identified by name, every single last person that I've documented by name, they have no right under the law to be subject to anything other than prison were they ever to come into my presence. Just like anyone else that you stalk and you enforce your rights against that stalker, and the Superior Court renders as a matter of law a judgment stating, okay, you're stalking, stop stalking, and I'm putting it in plain terms, stop stalking, you're going to serve this consequence for stalking, and even when you get out, if you are ever around 500 feet, for example, of the person that you're stalking, of the plaintiff, you are going to be put into a mental ward, or you're going back to jail. This is what happens ordinarily, even getting things such as a restraining order, okay? And this is the ordinary way that you're engaging in what is prosecuting stalking. Okay, so because the government is engaging in what is gang stalking, federal group stalking and monitoring, it is not the case, nor is that going to be the case that you get less justice because the government sought to bully you through a whole population. Now, it may very well be that I move outside of the state of California. I'm not really tethered to the state anyway. However, I mean, emotionally speaking, I'm not at all. But the entity is engaging what is gang stalking, and every third party, not only the state itself, not only these corrupt law enforcement agencies, but I mean, even down to the people of the state, because this is the nature of what I'm documenting on my device, which the police department is sitting around monitoring and over the apartment building under the fake sun. And the entity is gang stalking while a demon sits in the parking lot in relevant position. And as I capture that at 12:13 p.m. and on video at 12:20 p.m. The entity, excuse me, let me go ahead and confirm that time. The video ended at 12:27 p.m. The video started at 12:13 p.m. So it's a series of seconds. The video started at, in fact, I want to correct myself, at 12:30 p.m. So the entity that is engaging in what is obsessing over me and what it is that they're observing on my device are my notations regarding those who are spiritually attacking me. And remember, spiritual attacks consist of, and this is for the information for the public to know, the propaganda in this country where the U.S. government is simultaneously maintaining these sorts of inhumane experiments on human beings. And also the entity does so for criminal purposes of demons who want to steal your spiritual gifts, especially when they know who you are in Christ. And by know who I am, they don't know the totality of who I am, but they recognize spiritually who I am, the fact that I do have spiritual gifts. And this is a part of the reason why I have been subject to this inhumane experiment targeting me since I was a child, not just as an adult. It didn't just happen when I passed the bar and I went into practice of law. That's when the entity ratcheted up its aggression. Okay, this is what I'm subject to now, routine harassment. Every job that I go to, my first job practicing law with the Mandarich law firm in Chatsworth, they start just out of nowhere. It's everything's going great one day. No situation, no encounter, no circumstance, nothing happens. It's just one day. You have what is just all of a sudden a hostile environment, hostile in demeanor, hostile in treatment, hostile in speech toward me, hostile in the way that I'm treated versus my colleagues. And I am under all circumstances performing well. And I am also in a position where it is inexplicable, but I'm dealing with demons on the job though. So this is the entity that engages in this. And I am, again, on the one hand, it's my first job as an attorney, but on the other hand, I'm still enthusiastic because I'm just gonna go get another job. And that's what I did, and I'm subject to this pattern of conduct from firm to firm, even as I go outside of the practice of law, and I'm subject to harassment. Okay, and this is very severe and violent corporate bullying, which forced me to stand up for myself, especially while the entity that's in a position to do so, they're a part of bullying me, they're a part of harassing me. And then as you do what you're supposed to do and report it to human resources, you are relieved from your job. That's a lawsuit. But when you're subject to federal group stalking monitoring, you do not have that at your disposal. The Department of the California Department of Housing and Employment, they are not actually interested. They are the entity. In the same way, and how am I stating that? Because you're going to say, well, you don't know because you didn't. Well, I'm not going to say what anyone's going to say. I reasonably anticipate some sort of rebuttal, and that rebuttal is unfounded. I have thoroughly prosecuted the state of California. So how is it that I'm already able to say at the outset, even though I never pursued a suit through the Department of Housing and discrimination, I forget the specific title of this entity, that's the entity, to maintain a suit for harassment on the job, and also an unlawful means to, they state that they relieve you, which you can under California law. You can be relieved for no reason, you can be relieved for good reason, but you can't be relieved for bad reasons, such as reporting harassment to human resources. But after I did that, then they're asserting, oh, well, we're just relieving you from your job, and it's clearly from the basis on my reporting not only my coworkers but my so-called superior. Anyway, my so-called superior to human resources for harassing me, for engaging in corporate bullying, and the wildly inappropriate behavior that I was subject to while at work. And this is both while practicing law and working in fields outside of the practice of law. First of all, I've proven all the facets of that. The entity gang stalked me at speaker companies, for example. The entity gang stalked me working for Beacon Properties in Jurupa Valley, California, where the pattern of conduct is underway. Also, the entity gang stalking through the corrupt courts, speaking to the inability to actually get redress, and that's why I'm speaking. It is a futile effort, and I do already know that. But I've also gone to the extent of actually prosecuting and in initiating my own case, and the entity denies justice, that which you are clearly entitled to. I mean, providing a civil case for what the entity has committed, and the entity does not respond to the suit. I mean, that's to put in ordinary. I don't want to get into legalese. That's why I'm trying to speak as plainly as possible. The entity that is non-responsive to a suit, that is what is ordinarily entitling one to default judgment. This is something that I was blatantly denied by the same gang stalking court, okay? This is a corrupt court, and this is a corrupt court that's also engaged in surveillance on all my devices. So as I'm preparing my court documentation, as I am filling it out, getting on the gang stalking bus, Omnitrans, from Ontario, the entity is under all circumstances keeping me under surveillance the entire way. Understand how the bully that is entirely intimidated by me seeks to intimidate me, which is impossible, but they're obsessed with me. That's why they're gang stalking me. And also, as I documented the criminal pattern of conduct throughout the courts, and all of that pattern of conduct is underway while you are denied the ability to redress grievances in the courts. That's how I'm speaking to what you're not going to get redressed. And you're also aware of that when you're subject to that level of harassment and you get no assistance, no representation from the people of the state, as you're understanding the P.O.C., but from the human resources, and then you are promptly relieved of your job, when again, you are a top performer. The entity is hostile to your ability to provide top performance, and this is why they target you at work. This is why they harass you at work. And then you're talking about relieving you from your job when you report it to human resources. Understand the injustice behind all of that. These are the same demons that are gang stalking. Okay, that's gang stalking in the professional world. And I've proven it while Beacon Properties in Jurupa Valley with the Riverside Police Department is gang stalking me, as I've shown the entity gang stalking with helicopter under the fake sun. That's in Jurupa Valley. Makes sense of the entity having the fake sun over me at any time of the day while Ontario PD and the people of the state in the middle of the parking lot are engaged in that pattern of conduct. You can't. You're understanding the P.O.C. The entity is gang stalking while I'm at work at speaker companies as the property manager at that property, and I also live there. And the entity is maintaining a fake sun for the duration of the day, remaining for the duration of my work day. That's speaking to the P.O.C. in the workplace, an unprecedented basis of prosecuting a corrupt government that's engaging in terrorism on the job. This is no ordinary harassment. This is domestic terrorism in the workplace. And I've proven that. This is the same entity that denies justice the ability to actually get any sort of grievances redressed in the court. And that's what's relevant when I make the statement that going to the Department of Housing, Fair Housing and Discrimination, that you're not there. It's the same state. Number one, but number two, I've prosecuted the entity that's engaging in that POC, and you do not. This is not only the Superior Court. I prosecuted I've documented the appellate level, and I documented the California Supreme Court engaging in the pattern of conduct, which is facilitating the federal group stalking monitoring in order that they can continuously gang stalk like the Ontario Police Department are doing to date. And it is no mystery why they are going to prison. This is why you evaded service of process. And to date, you are engaging in the pattern of conduct. Thomas Garza's criminal act, again, there's a whole pattern of conduct. There's a whole body of evidence that coexists with what I am documenting to date. And when I'm inside of the apartment, this is what I'm getting to, and I'm on the device, my device, that all of an entity is obsessing over what it is that I'm typing, and the entity is engaging in what is psychological warfare, which coexists with the system of gang stalking, federal group stalking monitoring. And I want to make sure that I document that because the federal government, corrupt actors, the entity that I've documented by name, they are, by virtue of my documenting the P.O.C, and I've documented them, in anyone that I've documented, but it's also especially for those that are a part of the government, that are, for example, anyone that I know, and I've documented these demons by name, and they happen to have any position in government, they are a gang stalking corrupt official. That's how those facts work. And they are still targeting. They are part of the same entity. And the entity that is engaged in what is lying about the nature of a relationship between myself and any of them, they have lied about the nature of the relationship between myself and them. They have lied about my sentiments toward them. I have not, for example, the entity that's Tracy Banks's kingdom spouse, whom she married, this person that was in my social circle. The entity is engaging in what is marrying this former associate of mine, who I never had any serious romantic encounter with. There was never anything serious between us. We would talk on the phone. There was never even a real date. There was never a date. Okay. This is somebody that was also talking to me on the phone, just monitoring, engaging in federal stalking, gang stalking in California and gang stalking in Nevada as well, which I've also been in Nevada, and the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the Nevada State Police have confirmed that the pattern of conduct is underway. Okay, they engaged in it while they anticipated my arrival, as I'm subject to what is the U.S. government's P.O.C. as I go from California to Nevada, where the pattern of conduct, the P.O.C. of gang stalking, continued unhindered, as evident through the specific environment. And then you're making sense of the fake sun that's sitting idle over units 33 through 48, while the police are gang stalking, exhibiting demon possession, and doing so, admitting to criminal surveillance. The police and the airport and the demons that are sitting in the parking lot outside engaging in surveillance of an unprecedented level that is to be prosecuted. Not just the people of the state here, but the people of the state, that are documented at large. And it includes those who I have identified, and they remain a part of that entity. And it does not change regarding their nature or their status, if you will. So I'm speaking to what is the entity that is gang stalking as any official, and I put that in air quotes, any official position, because you're not an actual, like I've stated, and as you've witnessed, you're not an actual or a real police officer. That's Satan that's playing dress up. And you need to understand that that's the legitimacy that Satan wants. That's the authority that Satan wants, but it's the authority that Satan doesn't have. That's why you have demons playing dress up. And they can't even spell Constitution, as I've tested them. And they're not only unintelligent, they're very foolish with regard to being criminals, and they're also very foolish with regard to being surrounded with a body of evidence proving their criminal engagement in an unprecedented and inhumane criminal system. That is antithetical to what police departments are supposed to represent and actually be doing and be consumed with and being engaged in spending resources on. The entity that is gang stalking me, that I've documented by name, including the kingdom spouse of, and again, I'm saying that on purpose because the two, Tracy Banks and Jason Isaac Fields, or whoever this resonates with, because the entity has engaged in a lot of criminal acts behind my back. And a lot of the purpose of engaging in things such as marriages, Tracy Banks being in any sort of marriage, in other words, with anyone formally associated with me, for example, anyone that I've documented by name. If I documented you by name, that's because they had some sort of status in my life, somebody that I formally and voluntarily associated with, and I ceased from doing so. And that's not because I am suffering from any sort of mental illness. That's because they are documented gang stalkers. And while they made any sort of criminally defamatory statements about me in any corrupt courthouse, that is subjecting them to prison. That's how those facts are going to be used. And you have the entity that has lied about the nature of the relationship with me while they are having sex behind my back with my mother, while they are engaging in what are legal contract creation, such as a marriage. Now, with regard to the status of a marriage between Jason Isaac Fields and Tracy Banks, I could not care less. He's not my boyfriend. He never was. He's not boyfriend material. He's clearly someone that is still disturbed. He is engaged in psychological warfare. He is a psychopath. He's engaged in psychopathic behaviors while he's spiritually attacking me. And this is what it is that I'm going to expose about this person who is already a documented terrorist. And this is somebody, again, the gang stalkers are perverts. They're sex offenders. This is somebody who is a pervert and is, again, engaging in what is perverted against me as well, while being a gang stalker. And this is the case while I was in his presence and, for example, using his restroom in his apartment in Rialto, where he's gang stalking with the Rialto Police Department and his entire apartment complex, the people of the state and the city of Rialto, gang stalking. And I use his restroom. That's all public information. This is a pervert. Okay, I never invited him in the bathroom with me. I didn't say, hey, do you want to listen to me use but this is what these demons are doing. And this is a psychopath that is engaging at that sort of targeting someone while you're in their apartment, and then they're maintaining a straight face. That's a sick person. And just breaking down the practical execution of federal group stalking and monitoring. That's what I'm still subject to. This is what this demon Tracy Banks engages in. And I'm her birth daughter. She gave birth to me. And she's engaged in facilitating sexual violence of a perverted and incestuous nature while she's obsessed with my genitalia. And everybody else is gang stalking me and monitoring my genitalia, engaging in surveillance in a bathroom, where I guess in the bathroom, I could undergo some sort of spiritual transformation, and all the demons want to make sure that they're sitting around all watching and obsessively monitoring so that they don't miss it. Okay, these are psychopaths. In the physical, these are demons in the spirit, and they engage in what is surveillance while they're gang stalking in bathrooms. And this is what this pervert, Jason Isaac Fields, has engaged in. He is a documented terrorist. He is still to date gang stalking. The spiritual aspect with regard to the pattern of conduct is relevant. The psychological warfare. And people need to know about the psychological warfare, which does not render you mentally ill, in fact. This propaganda that's designed to deceive you about what is quote unquote wrong with you is serving an unlawful purpose. Misinformation, which is serving a satanic agenda. It is a satanic agenda in the specific environment that surrounds all of us. There are those that are being targeted, and you're being targeted by those of a specific condition. Demons who want you to question your own sanity, who want you to question the nature of those and the intent of those around you, because they derive pleasure out of watching you suffer in that sort of psychological manner. They also want you to believe that you are suffering something mentally. The entity that is gang stalking me, I am testing myself by documenting them. Okay, I don't assume, I know that I am healthy, and it's something that I would fully cooperate with and realize if that were the case. But from the outset, I know that there is nothing wrong with me, and that I am subject to something, but it's something that I'm going to have to look into, because on its face, and this is what I also understood but at the outset before prosecuting the state and beginning my investigation and prosecuting the state, is because even on its face, I am answering the questions that I know another person that is learning would have, because I'm in that position. But it did not cause me to question my sanity. I know that I'm 100% healthy mentally and psychologically. However, there is something that I'm being targeted by, that I am subject to, that is something that's going to require me to look into it. How is this the case on the face that this person that I don't know is aware of who I am and is targeting me even while they don't look at me or talk to me? I understand that position. Okay, these are demons, however, and I've shown through the pattern of conduct how that reality is underway, and it is not enough to have an instinct about it. To discern it even, because it will, with regard to the illusion that the state relies on, the illusion is what is sufficient for a government to criminally defame you. The illusion exists in the form of your assertion of stalking by someone that you don't know, who's also, for example, under certain facts, perhaps doesn't even know you, isn't even addressing you, isn't talking to you, looking at you, and then what is it that they're doing? They're putting groceries in the trunk of their car, closing their trunk door, walking around to their, they walk to return the shopping cart to the area where shopping carts go in the parking lot, and then they walk back to their vehicle. They might open the back door, open the trunk back up again, check on, make sure everything's okay, close the trunk again, walk to the passenger side, make sure everybody's in the car okay, then walk around to the opposite side and get in the driver's side to operate the vehicle, where they then sit in operation of their communication device. All of this is on its face innocent, serving the illusion, absent any facts and evidence, speaking to how you are stalking as a population, where it's not relying on, it's actually relying on anonymity, which is an illusion. There's no anonymity under the fake sun. There's no anonymity amongst engineered light. There's no anonymity amongst the government that's gang stalking directly in planes and helicopters. And you're recognizing how that system is underway, but at the outset, the illusion exists in making an assertion without having any proof about a stranger that doesn't even talk to you, that's not even acknowledging you, and you're claiming that they're stalking you. And this is actually the case with regard to gang stalking. The illusion, however, is creating the absence of any proof of that, and you are criminally defamed as being paranoid, or hallucinating with regard to the entity that's gang stalked with amplified noise, gang stalked with engineered light, gang stalking, and however the unsophisticated target individual, the average person, but no one's ever getting to the fake sun. No one's getting that deep into the evidence, okay? But the demonic that engage in targeting you with demonic acts such as shadows moving all around the engineer light, shadows swirling, all manner of chicanery with the impossible light activity. The demons have a field day psychologically torturing you, and that's supposed to result in a criminal defamation with regard to hallucinations. This is how the demons are targeting you. I want to get to the entity that is engaging in this, while psychological warfare is what is the purpose. Creating what is an illusion. And I understand how and the Lord permitted me to be in that circumstance in order for me to make plain to you, while you're witnessing, what is my gift of explaining not only the reality of Satan and the spiritual realm, proven through tangible evidence as I prosecute unprecedented criminal activity of a demonic nature that's speaking to malice in a court, but also while you're understanding that P.O.C, which is very real as it's proven, it coexists with what is that psychological warfare, the spiritual aspect, which is occurring in your mind. Understand what's occurring in your mind is spiritually significant. And it is falsely. Alrighty, this is the entity that is gang stalking. By virtue of recognizing the specific environment, the entity that has the fake sun over the same apartment building, which it's substantially similar to where I documented it at 12, over the center of the apartment. And this is, again, first of all, what is the same positioning in the morning when the demons are gang stalking at 9:46 a.m. and the vehicle that's parked under the carport behind this white BMW, where you're looking at evidence of stalking with light, which is demonic, which is telling on the entire neighborhood, the entire city, that is gang stalking, where at 9:46 a.m. the vehicle would be behind this white BMW, the video evidence at 9:46 a.m. where the sun would be in a substantially similar, that is the same exact location, to be reflecting off of the driver's side window of a vehicle parked in the same parking lot at the same address at 9:46 a.m. Of course, as I open the door at 12:13 p.m., the demon possessed are gang stalking while the fake sun is remaining over the same apartment complex. And as it is currently 2:47 p.m., you're looking at what is evidence, as I'm referencing what it is that you've already seen, a fake sun speaking to a population that also lives in an apartment complex, gang stalking together. This is where you're looking at what is the evidence tying together what is gang stalking that's committed as a corrupt government, doing so in an environment where you're looking at what is very demonic. Okay? This is speaking to the environment where a bunch of demons, as you can see me moving around and having multiple shadows. This is not sunlight. None of this is sunlight. And it's also speaking to what is not the sun, to be in a position to be reflecting off of the windshield. And under no circumstances is this the product of the sun, but it's maintaining what is idle presence, as the evidence of a sun remaining idle is the evidence of gang stalking. The evidence of what is engineer light that defies nature, not sunlight, is evidence of gang stalking. And they're also doing so while a bunch of psychopaths are monitoring me, and while they're walking by the apartment, engineer light is occurring inside of the apartment where their shadows are moving on the inside. This is again light manifesting in the shade, as I am documenting that POC and the podcast documentation, which this video follows that. And this is engineer light piercing through. And then remember the body of evidence speaking to the entity has a fake sun reflecting off of a windshield at the apartment complex in Ontario, California at Woodside, where the fake sun is still here after 6 p.m. as I am at the same apartment, 6:18 p.m. and I'm looking at the same light source. Remember that. But also the body of evidence speaking to what is this fake sun that's maintaining this sort of position in Los Angeles, which is speaking to what LAPD were doing, what Karen Bass is, and what she was doing, and what she knows that the entire population of Los Angeles County is doing, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. All right, this is the prosecution of the state of California as you are capturing that specific environment that defies nature. And by the way, the engineer light has nothing to do with the fake sun outside. All the entity is doing is changing the hue of equally impossible light activity, regardless of what side of the door the fake sun is on, regardless of whether it is dark outside or sunny outside. This is the POC. This is where it was at 12:13 p.m. right here, where Ontario PD fly right over. And this is where it is right now, which would be the case in order for it to be reflecting off of a windshield. A very unintelligent pattern of conduct. Those who are spiritually inferior, demons, and Satan himself are engaging in what is a very highly obvious criminal pattern of conduct. It's speaking to their mental illness. It's speaking to their condition, demon possession. In case you're ignorant about what demons look like or where demons are, what they behave like, federal group stalking monitoring is speaking to that. And this is an impossible occurrence where the sun would be over the same building, by the way. 9:46 a.m. it's right here, and it's reflecting off of the vehicle that's under that carport. I'll go ahead and reference that video to remind you about that. 9:46 a.m. to what is 2:50 p.m. And this is also the same position where this same fake sun is at 8 o'clock in the morning when I walk to this same location and the fake sun remains over me. The entity is engaging in this POC with regard to the evidence of surveillance by a community, by a state, and it's demonic. Where demons know exactly who you are, and they're monitoring what it is that you're doing inside of a private space, which is a sex offense that a government is going to be prosecuted for. Everybody at this apartment complex is stalking. Everybody at this apartment complex, they're full of demons, and they're monitoring my genitalia and a bathroom as well. And this is not over Alvarado Gardens in Los Angeles either. All right, this is the body of evidence speaking to that POC. This is also where the fake sun remains after 6 p.m. right here. The fake sun that's reflecting off of a vehicle parked in the parking lot at 9:46 a.m. and it's reflecting off of a vehicle that's parked in the same parking lot just steps away from it is evidence of a fake sun. The fake sun is evidence of what is criminal surveillance of a satanic nature. It's speaking to what is surveillance. As you can see my shadow at a distance. Let me show you where everybody's going to mental asylums and prison. There, as you can see my shadow up here. This is the nature of the light activity inside of Tracy Banks' apartment. They're gang stalking. Unit 52 is going to prison, as clearly as you see that impossible light activity, which has nothing to do with the fake sun. These are all demons, and the engineer light is speaking to surveillance on communication devices. They know exactly what it is that I'm saying. They know what I'm doing, and that's criminal surveillance that's putting them in federal prison under Title 18. By the way, they're going to prison because they're gang stalking by residents. They're going to federal prison because they're still gang stalking when they're aware of the fact that they're being documented, as no gang stalking entity is going to continuously engage in domestic terrorism. It is currently 2:51 p.m. and this is what I was referring to in the podcast. If you'll listen to what I just discussed right now in the podcast, and I stated that I would get the image of the fake sun because while I was discussing a material on my podcast providing insight regarding actual diagnosis for mental illness by the gang stalking demons, as opposed to the targeted individual who was a very real person having a very real status, with regard to the purpose of criminally defaming that person, the engineer light, the evidence of the fake sun, the gang stalking, while you're simultaneously being prosecuted, which is what I represent, prosecuting the U.S. government, that is speaking to the mental illness of the gang stalkers. It has no reflection whatsoever regarding the evidence that I'm gathering showing that criminal surveillance of a satanic nature is what I remain subject to while the entity sought to criminally defame my character behind my back. That's the pattern of conduct. It is currently 2:52 p.m. Everybody in units 33 through 64, as clearly as you see this fake sun, they're going to prison and mental asylums. All right, and the entity is gang stalking the Ontario Police. Like you saw earlier today, like I stated, they're exhibiting demon possession, which is also a basis of disqualification from being in law enforcement. Besides the fact that they are clearly welcoming what is the shameful attention of being demons and stalking together, as while at the same time bearing badges. They welcome that. That's how mentally ill they are, aside from their engagement in the pattern of conduct. Stalking with light, stalking with presence in the path, stalking with audible activity, that's psychopathic. When they're monitoring as a police department, they're going to be disbanded, and they are exhibiting what is a disqualification in and of itself by engaging in the P.O.C. And that's exactly what they were doing under this fake sun that's still over the same location at 12:13 p.m. It is currently 2:53 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, the mental health patients, they are infuriated. They are, again, hostile, and they become more violent. While I am listening to worship music about Jesus Christ, the mental health patient that is demon possessed, again, this is the cause of this mental illness that's being acted out, that animates the criminal behavior, and it is the evidence manifested regarding what is mentally wrong with this gang stalking unit number 55, license 5WUB 715, amplified booming. You already saw those listening on the podcast, the fake sun is remaining over this environment, speaking to nothing other than surveillance, that the police department is exhibiting the same level of mental illness, obsessively consumed with stalking me, and then is also demons who are hostile and become furious and violent while they hear the name of Jesus, while they hear me as a believer singing and worshiping him. Which again, if they were not stalking and monitoring me, then they could be relieved of that torture. But they are also being tortured while they're being embarrassed about what is mental illness, while they are also being exposed as demon-possessed people who are engaged in what is unprecedented and sexually violent and demented criminal activity, which is the material that's going to inform the ways in which they are going to be treated when they are confined. And this is speaking to the mentally ill that are gang stalking by residents at Woodside. All 144 units are sharing in the criminal elements of monitoring. They're engaged in criminal surveillance, that is. They are demon possessed. Their mental illness is the documentation that has prosecuted them for federal group stalking and monitoring, and they're engaged in what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment, while AVANATH Capital Management is engaging in what is psychological torture based on its sex offense of monitoring inside of a private space, and engaging in what is federal stalking in violation of Title 18, while a sex offender, a psychopath, is incapable of controlling their impulses, and the amplified audible activity is resulting from that, from gang stalking. This is the entity that is, again, that mental illness is based on the fact that the entity has sacrificed where they're going to live. They've sacrificed their freedom. They've sacrificed the ability to not have a criminal record if they don't already have one. I know they don't have one for domestic terrorism and being a sex offender by a public entity. I know they don't have that, and that's what they're all walking away with. And those that are going to prison and mental asylums are going to be prosecuted and treated based on their mental illness that they share while they're gang stalking together as an entity in an environment that is conducive to monitoring. And that's speaking to the mental illness of those under the fake sun, pacing all around together, while amplified booming is occurring inside of the defendant Tracy Banks's apartment, where the engineer light remains stationary inside of her apartment. And by stationary meaning it is static with regard to its presence, but it is dynamic as it's always moving around inside of her apartment, and none of it is sunlight. This is speaking to criminal surveillance that is satanic. And this is also, I'm also giving relevant information, details about the spiritual aspect of the pattern of conduct. These are demons that are hostile while I sing about Christ Jesus, who is prosecuting all of the demons. Okay? So the entity is doing so with regard to the pattern of conduct. Currently at 3:45 p.m. Again, license 5WUB 715 is going to a mental asylum, and her mental illness is exhibited by her engagement in what is psychologically torturing her neighbor, who she is stalking, who she is sexually obsessed with, who she is targeting with what is behavior that's happening in her apartment, which is impossible for me to naturally hear. And her mental illness is based on and identified by the impossible character of what she's doing inside of her apartment, which is designed to harass me and terrorize me and falsely depict my character while she is targeting me. That is somebody that is a psychopath and is also demon possessed. Okay, it is that which is executed by an entity. So she is acting on behalf of an entity. They're all being prosecuted while they're stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act. It is currently 3:46 p.m. This is P.O.C. All right, documentation of what is ongoing psychological torture while what is criminally interfering with quiet enjoyment, where gang stalking is underway at an apartment complex inside of an apartment, which is constitutionally protected with regard to privacy, and the government having no warrant or probable cause to keep you under surveillance, to stalk you or to monitor you, and to do so in concert with the entity that is residing at the unit. They're all over 55, and so you have this ongoing booming, like bombs are detonating inside of the apartment. And this is what, with regard to, that's the pattern of conduct. And I want to also make sure that I document the entity is engaging what is amplified audible activity amongst what is the engineered light that is still on the same east living room wall across the ceiling and on the east living room wall adjacent to the front door, where it has been since I documented much earlier in the day when the fake sun is shining. It's currently 6:01 p.m. And you also know that the entity is keeping the fake sun, as a matter of video documentation, 6:18 p.m. At the same venue. What is relevant regarding the pattern of conduct of engaging what is harassment, terrorism, the sex offense of federal group stalking and monitoring while I'm under surveillance by a population and a government, including the police department that uses millions of dollars in gang stalking by helicopter. They are still engaging in surveillance while the elderly are gang stalking, while amplified noise amongst engineered light at the facilitated venue, which is a readily identifiable crime scene. And I'm listening to a documentation that it is triggered by, and that triggering creates what is the inspiration to further harass and terrorize and create amplified noise inside of the apartment. These are hostile demons that are monitoring, especially monitoring while I am putting together evidence. So the podcast documented March 29th, 2025, which I am publishing onto YouTube, the channel, because it's already published as a matter of the podcast, so you can already listen to it. But on YouTube, where you can view the video podcast, I am also linking what are video references, where what it is that I'm speaking about. You can click on the references in order to see the video speaking to the specific environment, where the fake sun is over my head in its zenith in Los Angeles at 12:08 p.m. in Las Vegas, Nevada. While I am referencing that, and I am at the same time at in Las Vegas, and I'm attaching this video to the podcast, this is when amplified booming is heard inside of the apartment. Again, the entity that's gang stalking at Woodside, they're going to prison. They're losing their housing, and they are going to mental asylums as well, based on the highly demented and sexually perverted and criminal engagement in what is domestic terrorism and psychological torture on behalf of a corrupt government for purposes of trying to murder and kidnap the daughter of the defendant that resides in this apartment where she is, that is Tracy Banks, gang stalking me as well, and is gang stalking while a population maintains that criminal engagement in relevant position while she is physically outside of the apartment and fully engaged in the same criminal pattern of conduct, which is relying on what is this iteration that I'm documenting, psychological torture by a bunch of psychopaths who are hostile, while I combine, for your convenience, the video evidence of the fake sun over me in Las Vegas, Nevada, where it would never be over the defendants who are going to prison and mental asylums in units 33 through 64. But that's exactly what I have when I am capturing, which is what I'm referencing at 9:46 a.m. on video, and I included that video in that podcast capture on March 29, 2025. And as you are aware, what I documented today, the demon-possessed and corrupt police department that's gang stalking today, March 30th, 2025 at 12:13 p.m., where you are seeing, that is, again, 10 during the 12 p.m. hour, that is the same apartment building, and you're looking at the fake sun in its zenith over the top of my head. And at 12:08 p.m. in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is the same time the fake sun is in its zenith over the top of my head, where the Ontario Police Department are gang stalking. That's the identification of demon-possessed people who are stalking in violation of the law, maliciously doing so with knowledge that they are being documented in furtherance of trying to commit murder and criminally defame, and having a pattern of kidnapping also documented about that corrupt police department, who is still gang stalking and psychologically torturing me in concert with the elderly over 55 with no jobs, while they're gang stalking on a ceaseless basis at Woodside Senior Apartments, where the fake sun rises and sets. And that's directly juxtaposed for purposes of prosecuting a corrupt entity, the U.S. government, for gang stalking in California, where I'm capturing the fake sun over me in Nevada at Courtyard by Marriott at Dean Martin Drive at 12:08 p.m. as I walk outside of that hotel checking out, and 12:08 the fake sun is at the zenith, literally above in perfect zenith above me as I stand at the edge of that hotel outside at the entrance of the lobby. And the entity has the fake sun over me at 12:13 p.m. even today, March 30th, 2025, and also, which is the same time. And also, as I'm referencing that regarding the U.S. government's engagement in the pattern of conduct, as I'm showing the specific environment as what is happening in Las Vegas is not within what is a natural environment and would be in the sky space. That is the sun being over my head at any point of the day, while the sun is rising over me at the Courtyard by Marriott on video, which is why I documented in order to prove it. And it's remaining over that same venue as I exit and check out of that hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada at 12:08 p.m. And while I reference this evidence, and the entity is still gang stalking and still engaging in what is monitoring on communication devices, and doing so with the intent to obstruct justice, that is harassing me while I am documenting them, and they are still exhibiting what is severe mental instability while the evidence of their criminal pattern of conduct is nonetheless being collected, and even more of it speaking to the malice and the intent to psychologically torture while you are fully prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring. That's what's relevant regarding what you can look at. The podcast that is published already regarding March 29, 2025 on the YouTube channel, you are able to see, and you don't have to look at the YouTube of videos of the podcast, but because the video evidence of what is documented in Las Vegas, Nevada on August 6, 2024 at the Courtyard by Marriott, a gang stalking company, which is evident by the fake sun and the entity that is gang stalking by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police using helicopter under that fake sun amongst engineered lights, the P.O.C. in an adjacent state where there is no sunrise over Woodside Senior Apartments and a sunrise over the Courtyard by Marriott in Las Vegas, Nevada at the same time or even an hour apart. This is the pattern of conduct, however. And as I reference this documentation, this is where demons who are still gang stalking me and engaged in psychological torture with his demon-possessed entity. They share the same spirit, targeting together and exhibiting hostility, while the gang stalkers at Woodside physically gang stalk and stalk with amplified noise, while psychopaths who are deranged and are engaging in practicing witchcraft and engaging with a psychological warfare, such as Tracy Banks's Kingdom spouse, Jason Isaac Fields, is engaged in what is an ongoing, obsessive, and demented campaign of what is engaging in psychological warfare, which is speaking to his mental illness, speaking to his obsession, speaking to his criminal engagement in federal group stalking and monitoring, which I also documented. By the way, he's a documented gang stalker, and he is still gang stalking, and also his marriage, his sexual relationship, his criminal acts of defamation. While I have not spoken to him, and I'm speaking to that which he is going to be prosecuted for. And I want to be clear, no testimony, no admission to the feds about any part of the pattern of conduct is creating any immunity with regard to what this demon is still engaging in. And it is, if there is also any unlawful possession or control or holding on to what is any benefits derived from criminally maintaining property that belongs to me, while he's nothing other than a demon-possessed a gang stalking demon who is engaging in psychological warfare with all these gang stalkers in relevant position. I want to be clear that you are not immune from me enforcing my rights against you. The entity is being prosecuted in the same way that the federal government is being educated about how you enforce justice, how you protect the rights of an American citizen that you never had the right to place under surveillance, that you never had the right to subject to this inhumane project, this inhumane experiment of federal group stalking and monitoring. And you will, as the entity, be held accountable, and the people of the state and gang stalking officials who are still worshiping Satan and are still fully demented in their mind state and still posing a very real threat while I am being gang stalked and I am subject to what is harassment, while I'm publishing the evidence conclusively proving that. This is what is relevant to, again, the whole bigger picture, while I am attaching evidence about the fake sun over me in Las Vegas, as I am showing you the fake sun that's over these demons at Woodside Senior Apartments in Ontario, California, nowhere in Las Vegas, Nevada, nowhere in the state of Nevada. Neither is the sun in a natural environment at any other location, while it remains over these very obvious defendants who are very sick, subject to what is a diagnosis for very real mental illness, for very real mentally demented and imbalanced state while they practice this targeting system of those who are demon possessed. And that condition is a matter of public information as I enforce my rights to prosecute them and also speak to what is the ability to recognize and also treat the national security threat of mental illness, where psychopaths are targeting American citizens in furtherance of defaming them, kidnapping them, murdering them, and in other words, psychologically harming them. Okay, that's what the population at Woodside Senior Apartments poses, and that's what they're doing. And I want to make sure that the evidence that they are triggered by, that they are engaging what is exacting violence against me, is something that you go ahead and look at, because that's what they're scared of. See the video evidence that is published in Las Vegas, Nevada, where the state of Nevada is an entity that is within the same pattern of conduct that the U.S. government is practicing, and it is evidence against the state of California. It is currently 6:11 p.m. where AVANATH Capital Management is simultaneously subject to what is a civil and criminal prosecution as I document their criminal engagement and what is harassment. In the shoes of the state, not a private act, no legitimate business practices, while the U.S. government's pattern of conduct of criminal surveillance amongst the people of the state who use their properties, who use their businesses, who are profiting from federal group stalking and monitoring, which is committed with the purpose of criminal defamation, murder, theft, as demons like Jason Isaac Fields represent, who will be literally stripped of all that this psychopath has stolen and has benefited from, and also placed into the appropriate facility. This is somebody that is entirely mentally sick and is still engaging in what he thinks is not going to be known, that he cannot be held accountable for, and that he cannot be subject to any sort of justice at any level. As I expose, first of all, he is a documented gang stalker, and his entire sexual and marital relationship, romantic relationship with Tracy Banks was for purposes of gang stalking, which is speaking to motive. Regardless of some two witches that claim that they can marry all they want, nobody's claiming that. It's providing context and the motivation for federal group stalking monitoring amongst these two demons who married each other, who practice witchcraft, who are engaged in psychological warfare, and are both gang stalking to date. It is currently 6:12 p.m. This is P.O.C. One other detail, the elderly, they're all elderly, they're all over 55, but the demons that you've seen, the elderly Caucasian woman on a walker inside of Unit 52, the elderly woman in Unit 55, license 5WUB715, the elderly woman that you see gang stalking getting out of a Jeep with a white male. This is a psychopath who's on video under the fake sun in the morning, going around his vehicle, repeatedly opening and closing the doors of his vehicle while he's pacing around it, monitoring and exhibiting severe mental illness. And while they do so, and the demon possessed are engaging in the pattern of conduct right in your face, and they surmise in their sick minds that you don't know what they're doing, and that's a psychopath associated with the demon in unit number 56. The demons that are gang stalking in this building around, those are much of those, your faces, you've seen their faces, those are the ones that are gang stalking, and they're supposed to be responsible for the amplified booming that's happening. They're going to federal prison, walker and all, blood pressure, liver spots, crusty skin and all. They're going to federal prison and mental asylums. And they are engaged in what is gang stalking by residents, and there is no different treatment based on the fact that you're engaging in domestic terrorism and you're over 55 with no job. It just speaks to how much of a pervert, how much of a psychopath, how many decades of practice in wicked conduct and targeting innocent people, how much of a predator you are. That's what it is. There's no defense or protection for you. In fact, you're going to need the grace of God as you serve justice for engaging in this, which the government further incriminates you while gang stalking me where you live under the fake sun. And I'm documenting ongoing psychological torture inside of the apartment building where they all share residents gang stalking me together. You've seen their images, and I will upload a reminder, because these elderly people are going to prison and mental asylums. In unit 52, you've seen 56, 55, she's so heavily documented, it's not even funny. But this is an entity that's gang stalking together, and they are all sharing in that. And that's just on this side of the building. On the opposite side, they're separated by, the apartments are separated by a wall, and that's a superficial barrier with regard to monitoring with communication devices and stalking the path. These are all psychopaths that are inside of a building, and they're all pacing around together, stalking with amplified noise that remains around me inside of the apartment apartment while they're all together aware of what I'm doing. These are psychopaths collectively, and they're going to be treated based on their mental illness. It's going to be diagnosed literally based on their criminal conduct. That is underway, executed as an entity. You will be prosecuted for your pacing neighbor's pattern of conduct. You will be prosecuted for your gang stalking co-defendant who uses helicopters and airplanes. That's going directly toward your mental illness. Hope everyone is clear on that. It's 6:15 p.m. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:52 p.m. This is ongoing documentation regarding the entity that is going to prison and mental asylums and engaging in the ongoing identical pattern of conduct. Everything that I'm documenting online, well, everything that I've already documented, I'm now in the process of publishing. So as I refer to previously documented criminal acts by the same entity that's in an entirely different region, by the way, as I refer to specifically video evidence of the LAPD gang stalking, just like you saw the Ontario PD gang stalking in helicopter under a fake sun, that is over me in the same manner while the entity is targeting me with the population. This is the population that's gang stalking inside of apartments. Everyone in units 33 through 64, LYNDA, REYES, all the other gang stalking employees of Woodside are going to prison and mental asylums. The entity is at it's approximately 6:53 p.m. So while I'm on reference to the video that I'm going to publish today, where the entity provided me evidence, this is speaking to mental illness with regard to everything that I'm documenting in order to prosecute. And it's also providing what is the material for diagnosing the mental illness, the psychopaths that are engaged in targeting for no legitimate purpose, who derive pleasure from, who engage in more violent acts the more that they are exposed, okay? Which is speaking to what is very severely demented in the beginning and the demented conduct that the demon possessed, who are also hostile because of their condition, the fact that they are demon possessed is being exposed about them. So, the video evidence that is captured today, March 30th, 2025 at 2:46 p.m. I am directly referring on the YouTube channel where you can see what is happening at the same time of year. And the same time of year and same time of day are two different angles with regard to recognizing the differences between the specific environment, which is a supernatural phenomenon that is happening on an ongoing basis, speaking to a pattern of conduct about everybody in that environment, where a satanic targeting system is underway in plain sight. And something as like conspicuous stalking that all the psychopaths in units 33 through 64 are engaging in, they're going to prison and mental asylums. And the more evidence that I collect with regard to prosecuting the U.S. government that's gang stalking through the unemployed elderly, that the government is engaged, they're going to prison and mental asylums for the criminal conduct that they decided to engage in, albeit the government is criminally contributing to public corruption while these old people are going to prison and asylums for it. No, they're not victims, but this is something that the government is continuously doing while I'm pointing out the clear criminal engagement and an unprecedented pattern of conduct that is proving the reality of what is stalking by a public entity referred to as gang stalking, as I have termed it, federal group stalking and monitoring. And that is in the form of on April 17th, 2024 at the same time, 2:47 p.m. This is relevant to the time of year. It's March 30th, 2025. So the same time of year is last year on April 17th, 2024. And today on video where I'm capturing the fake sun, you see it beaming on reflecting on a windshield, this laughable iteration of very satanic and obvious criminal engagement and gang stalking, very obvious gang stalking, as I'm pointing out the entity stalking under a fake sun. The sun that is over me at the same time of year and at the same time is where the entity is gang stalking by helicopter. And it's also legally relevant, but that I am in the workplace while I'm being gang stalked by my coworkers and also by the demons that are residing at the apartment complex, where LAPD is flying over my head by flying over my office, where the fake sun is planted over the top of my head in its zenith, which is at the same time over me here, where it's reflecting off of the demons' vehicles that are parked in this parking lot, where the fake sun is necessarily somewhere based on using the demon's own illusion. You're going to prosecute them with their creation of illusion. You're also going to diagnose their mental illness with their creation of illusions when they're gang stalking someone else, seeking to criminally defame and murder that person. That's what's going to be the material to diagnose their mental illness. And under the fake sun that is over me at Woodside Senior Apartments is speaking to what is indeed a fake sun, speaking to what is indeed a crime scene, a facilitating venue, and not a private residence where the government is engaging in absent any warrant or probable cause or legitimate interest whatsoever maintaining criminal surveillance through the satanic targeting systems such as federal group stalking and monitoring, where a fake sun and what is engineered light, meaning the surveillance system is underway where you're looking at the evidence of the fake sun as the geniuses have it in a position to be seen brightly shining on a windshield, and all you have to do is look at what was happening the year before at the same time. And a year before at the same time at 2:47 on April 17, 2024, the fake sun is in Los Angeles over me as I am facing building 1810 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles, California, 90026, where Yolanda Poon. This is somebody that is likely given the privilege to be in this country. She is gang stalking me via a communication device while I am in the workplace, and she is in the workplace. She's engaging in what is the basis of federal prison, which speaker companies hired me for purposes of gang stalking and furtherance of committing murder. They are doing so as the government incentivizes such means of systematic targeting of an American citizen, where you are supposed to be criminally defamed, where you allege that your employee, your coworkers, those who you work with every day, are stalking you. This is the malice of that system, and the entity is indeed gang stalking while the fake sun's reflecting off of a demon's vehicle at Woodside Senior Apartments at 2:46 p.m., where a year prior at 2:47 p.m. on April 17, 2024, I am in Los Angeles, and the sun that's over my head at 1810 North Alvarado Street in Los Angeles is not reflecting off of anybody's vehicle in Ontario, including at Woodside Senior Apartments in the same parking lot where the fake sun is reflecting off of the driver's side of a vehicle parked under the carport at 9:46 a.m. in the same at the same address as well. And that's not only same time of year, same time of day analysis as you juxtapose two different crime scenes, meaning LA and Ontario, San Bernardino County and Los Angeles County. You're also understanding, even as you prosecute these geniuses, these demons who are mentally ill and who are psychopathic, while their demonic impulses are acted out, while I point out to very damning evidence, and the apartment is filled with amplified booming. This is the prosecution of AVANATH Capital Management, whose criminal engagement, which is in conformity to the pattern of conduct that speaker companies and LAPD, the people of the state, were engaging in when I resided and worked in Los Angeles County. This is the same material where the entity would claim criminally and maliciously that I am mentally ill based on an inability to provide for myself because I'm not able to hold a job. And the evidence of federal group stalking and monitoring directly rebuts that, and it also proves the mental illness of psychopaths who are controlling the circumstances of an American citizen that suffers no mental illness whatsoever. And those demons know that, and they target it for the purposes of engaging in what is the federal offense of criminal defamation while gang stalking is simultaneously underway. And that is how the gang stalking LAPD is going to be used to prosecute demons such as Tracy Banks, demons such as Jason Isaac Fields, and anyone else such as Eric Spencer, anyone that's engaging in other words, in any means of criminal defamation. They do not do so ignorantly. They did not do so accidentally. They did so in conformity to a pattern of conduct where, in fact, the mentally ill are stalking with amplified noise. They're stalking under a fake sun. They're stalking amongst impossible light activity, and they're pacing around like psychopaths. Okay, the entity is doing so while they are hostile and triggered by very damning evidence. So you should take a good gander at it. It's already published on YouTube with regard to what is April 17, 2024 at 2:47 p.m. and 39 seconds, where the entity is gang stalking me while I'm in the workplace at Alvarado Gardens. And not only is this relevant to what's happening at the same time in Ontario, California at Woodside Senior Apartments, not anywhere in Ontario, but over Woodside around the demons who are going to prison and mental asylums in units 33 through 64, where the fake sun is in a position where the Ontario police have exhibited demon possession, a disqualification from being in law enforcement. They've exhibited what is a criminal conduct, speaking to domestic terrorism, a disqualification from ever being in law enforcement, again, as they're going to be prosecuted for federal group stalking and monitoring and repeatedly kidnapping me, while they were also aware of the fact that I was documenting, not only just engaging in kidnapping because they're just the average gang stalker. These demons that wear diapers because they're so heavily stalking me, they never take a nap, they never take a break. They're gang stalking and engaged in a pattern of kidnapping with the specific knowledge that I'm documenting the state and I'm documenting them. And they thought that they were going to kidnap me and defame my character and then in order to avoid and obstruct justice. That's why the Ontario Police Department is being disbanded. And that's what's relevant when you see them gang stalking under the fake sun at 12:13 p.m. today on March 30th, 2025. And that fake sun is still over the same exact apartment building when at 2:46 p.m. on the same day, it is reflecting off of a windshield, even though you know that this is an illusion where demons are going to be diagnosed and prosecuted based on the illusions that they create when they're trying to psychologically torture somebody, that they're gang stalking. However, you're going to prosecute with the very illusions because logic dictates in a natural environment where you're not surrounded by a bunch of psychopaths and predators, that what's reflecting off of a surface is that which the surface is directly under. So the sun would have to be directly over that vehicle in order to reflect off of that windshield. But that's a supernatural phenomenon because the sun 2 hours earlier, 2+ hours earlier, was already over that building. And as you are aware, there's a totality of circumstances, a body of evidence speaking to the sun is over this same building as you just saw yesterday, March 29, 2025 at 9:46 a.m. So what is Ontario Police Department actually doing? Both before 9:46 a.m. on video and after 2:46 p.m. When they're gang stalking on helicopter under the fake sun at 12:13 p.m. on March 30th, 2025. And it is the evidence of those who are mentally ill, and they will be prosecuted and diagnosed for that actual mental illness, where they seek to criminally defame those. That's mental illness. That's not speaking to the inability to appreciate. This is why you have gang stalking police, not because they don't know that they're breaking the law, not because they don't know that they're violating another person, not because they don't know that it's unconstitutional to commit the crimes that they're doing against an innocent American citizen that's committed no crime and for whom they have no warrant or probable cause to be keeping under surveillance and under any circumstances psychologically torturing. And don't forget that the demons are engaging in psychological warfare. So their effort to target me in the ways in which they do the average person, spiritually attacking them and gang stalking them, I have lived to survive and tell you about what psychopaths that are actually mentally ill, that are abusing existing legislation that is unconstitutional and unconstitutionally vague, that must change based on what it is that the entity targeted me with, which is in service to Satan and those that are going to be prosecuted for it. And it informs laws, and it's also going to disband corrupt police departments like Ontario PD, and it's serving to prosecute the LAPD and those demons that were gang stalking, engaging in just a litany of federal offenses, just having a field day terrorizing with helicopters. And so did speaker companies. This is how you're going to witness the implosion of federal group stalking monitoring, where now all I'm doing is I'm pitting the co-defendants against each other, while none of them are in any natural environment. It's directly relevant to the malice that colors the crime of federal group stalking and monitoring. The proof that not only are they stalking as a population, but these are demons that are stalking as a population. It's currently 7:04 p.m. This video that I'm referencing, what the people of the state are doing in Los Angeles at the same time of year under a fake sun, is referred to. It's on April 17, 2024 at 2:47 p.m. And the entity is psychologically torturing me with the amplified booming, the sound of like an earthquake or a bomb going off. With simultaneity to my selecting these videos. And this is pursuant to federal stalking violation of Title 18, 22618 subsections 1 and 2. It's the same pattern of conduct. I'm just giving you the ongoing legal analysis, and it's the material for actual mental illness by the gang stalkers themselves. And it's going to be the correction of the record that the gang stalking government doesn't actually have authority even to create or be in control of, because the government is shown to be a criminal acting outside of the constitutional bases of authority. And that is speaking to what, again, they're going to be operating based on what it actually has authority to do, as opposed to the exercise of fictitious authority that's happening throughout this country in actuality, because the entity that's engaging in surveillance of American citizens is the entity that has no constitutional rights to keep American citizens under surveillance. That's the actual factual. It's currently 7:05 p.m. This is P.O.C. AVANATH Capital Management is going to be liable for damages while it's a gang stalking and unemployed co-defendants are racking up a bill. And I'm also going to prosecute that company that will not be able to maintain a business like it is now, profiting off of federal group stalking and monitoring, which is what is happening and which is what supersedes anything that this corrupt third party is going to claim with regard to the legitimacy of its business. There is no legitimacy. Where domestic terrorism and psychological torture is simultaneously underway, is a part of anything that you are engaging in as a business, such as your gang stalking employees, which LYNDA Reyes has proven on more than one occasion, including now. While where the place she is employed is gang stalking on a 24-hour basis, you will be prosecuted. Okay, the entity is doing so, again, obsessively, as I just document that which is, I've already established my credibility. You can look at the video evidence that is published today, March 30th, 2025. And like I typically like to give an example of what's happening in another place at the same time, or what's happening here several hours earlier, where you will see what is a non-moving sun, speaking to what is indeed demons who are stalking and proving their mental illness that they know they don't want you to have any trace of closeted mental illness, which is speaking to a national security threat. It's a threat to American citizens who are unsuspecting and don't know about the predators that surround in this country, who are fully engaging in this pattern of conduct, which is the demon possessed that are running around unsuspected, and they're targeting people and they're harming them, and they are engaging in terrorizing them. And it is, again, sponsored by the government that's gang stalking me for purposes of kidnapping and murder. But this is what the demon possessed are doing throughout this country. And it's what the government is doing with knowledge. And then you have this whole cops and robbers game. Okay, the entity is engaging in the P.O.C. simultaneously. It's currently 7:07 p.m. And AVANATH is liable for what is criminal interference with quiet enjoyment with the intent to obstruct justice, while it is gang stalking as a third-party company, and it's gang stalking with its co-defendants, the people of the state of California. All right, it's 7:07 p.m. This is P.O.C. Inside of the defendant Tracy Banks' apartment. This is all prosecuting her, what she's directly engaged in while it's happening in her apartment. P.O.C. The current time is 9:42 p.m. The people of the state are stalking in the path. This is Woodside Senior Apartments. This is the demon stalking in engineer light. I've shown you multiple shadows that are upright as I walk outside at nightfall. So this is stalking in the path with peculiarized light. That's a demon that's using their headlights. And the entity is stalking with amplified noise inside of the apartment. This is a psychopath that's monitoring my genitalia. This is a population that's engaging in this 24-hour surveillance system. License 9HNW373. That's the operation of the vehicle, opening the passenger door in the front, opening the passenger door in the back, stalking in the path, while my shadow is enlarged in size on both sides of me. This is P.O.C. Yeah, impossible light. The stop sign's moving across apartments number 65 through 84. This is P.O.C. It's a demon, license 9HNW373. (9:44 p.m. These are the elderly over 55 years old. They're all stalking in violation of the Violence Against Women Act, and they are indeed going to prison and mental asylums for such gang stalking and furtherance of committing murder and kidnapping, and continuously doing so while their gang stalking is being documented, which is evidence that they're also aware of and is interfering and engaging in what is harassing and terrorizing with the intent to obstruct justice. This is a demon that's stalking in the path with flashing lights and engineer light while the entity is communicating a threat with a sound reminiscent of a gunshot. All of these cowards are going to mental asylums and prison. All right, the entity is gang stalking on behalf of and in concert with the demons that were gang stalking with helicopter. That's going to be the disbanded police department. The cowards that gang stalk with the same demons in the parking lot right now. They're going to be prosecuted, all the demons in relevant position, while they're hostile, because I just documented them being sex offenders and them being psychopaths while my shadow moves all around my body. Those sex offenders are going to be prosecuted as a whole property. And AVANATH Capital Management is going to be prosecuted as you hear that gunshot, or that which sounds like a gunshot, which is audible activity in engineer light designed to monitor you and simultaneously threaten you, as you will analyze the means whereby demons will monitor you and the methods whereby they create audible activity. The entity is going to be prosecuted for that. AVANATH is going to be prosecuted with regard to threatening my life and safety while I'm documenting their gang stalking on their property. Okay, while the population is engaging in terrorism and a sex offense, while AVANATH is making money off of domestic terrorism. Again, let me document again. It's 9:45 p.m. The entity is stalking in the path outside with hazard lights on, and as I walk back, amplified audible activity sounding as something is popping like gunshots. I've captured video of the entity engaging in that pattern of conduct before. It's going to be the prosecution and the removal of the mayor. Again, but the entity is engaging in this P.O.C. Threatening what is a federal prosecutor. You're threatening the federal government that's going to prosecute you. No, you're not successfully. So this is, again, psychopathic behaviors of those who are going to be diagnosed by their own criminal conduct. And it's not mysterious, and it's not vague, and it's not some sort of question with regard to, who's responsible? The demon that's inside of her apartment where I'm being gang stalked, Tracy Banks, license 9HUZ740, her mental illness is exhibited and will be at the forefront of what is going to place her in a mental asylum. She's also gang stalking with the entire apartment complex, who are the population that reside at the venue where gang stalking is underway. And you know that because this is where the fake sun rises and sets, which is where she lives, which is where the police is stalking, which is where the fire department is stalking, which is where the sheriff's department is stalking, which is where the municipality itself is stalking, which is where the residents are stalking by maintenance of presence, by living at a crime scene, so that the obsessed, demon-possessed sex offenders can make sure that they never miss a moment with regard to my genitalia okay? And they never miss a moment with regard to what is their front row seat to their own exposure and prosecution. And they have a lot of, again, the demons are going to witness what is going to be their placement in mental asylums for this psychopathic obsession that I'm currently documenting, which is their pattern of conduct of criminal monitoring. Again, let me repeat that license plate. This third party, this is a so I want to document an unlawful threat by this third party who is indeed gang stalking as I document her. This is a psychopath. Federal prison, license 9HNW373, stalking in the path with light activity and engineer light, terrorizing me while the sign, a stop sign, the shape of the stop sign is dynamic, moving across the exterior of the apartment building above my head, just like you've seen the shadow of my hand appearing above my head while the fake sun is over my head. This is what's happening at nightfall while I'm documenting this third party, license 9HNW373, who has a demon opening and closing her vehicle doors to monitor me with every movement that I make, and also monitoring as I document her license plate. That's federal prison. That's an entity that's stalking you and psychologically torturing you with the audible activity creation of what is reminiscent of a gunshot. While you're documenting, understand that that's the P.O.C, and that's how cowards who are also demon possessed, hostile because you're telling on the fact that they're stalking you and they are hostile about that. Psychopaths, okay? Actual mental illness. And the entity that is aware that they're being documented and then using the sound of gunshots to monitor you while you are documenting them at that. This third party license 9HNW373 is engaging in what is a criminal act of obstruction of justice, threatening my physical harm, threatening my life, while not only gang stalking me while I'm documenting her, and also gang stalking me by monitoring while I'm engaged in real-time documentation. So at the same time, the entity is being investigated, essentially witnessing their prosecution. You're still just terrorizing someone, and you're going to threaten them with the audible activity monitor with the sound of a gunshot. Okay, the entity, in the same way that it monitors via criminal defamation, every word that comes out of the mouth of a gang stalking demon is going to put them in prison for longer. It's going to put them in mental asylums. The entity that does so with regard to amplified noise that's reminiscent of that which would be used to take your life is that which is going to put them in prison. Okay, it is currently, again, 9:49 p.m. where the city of Ontario is gang stalking with such sex offenders, with such psychopaths who are also identified already by residents. It's going right back to the demons that are living at the crime scene. It's going right back to the apartment complex that's gang stalking as a facilitating venue. It's going right back to the city of Ontario that's going to be prosecuted for the ongoing public corruption that it has been festering and profiting from and incentivizing amongst a demon-possessed and mentally ill population for decades. And this is the entity that is going to be prosecuted for that, okay? So the amplified sound of the gunshot in the background, that is again relevant to what is obstruction that this demon that's being documented is going to be prosecuted for. And that is an unlawful threat to your life. You are always analyzing the behavior of the stalker and that which is reasonably deduced from the stalker's behavior when they're targeting you, and they're also aware that you know that they're targeting you. Where gang stalking is supposed to be something that someone is supposed to appear mentally ill by even alleging it. We've gone well beyond that illusion. They are under an illusion that they're avoiding federal prison for gang stalking with the sound of gunshots. That's license 9HNW373. It's currently 9:50 p.m. That sex offender appears to be a Caucasian woman. This is a Caucasian male wearing a green beanie and a black jacket, opening and closing her vehicles on the passenger side, as I documented on images at 9:43 p.m. As I began walking back to Tracy Banks' apartment, where I remain subject to this pattern of conduct. She's monitoring me with the demons that are in the parking lot. She's monitoring with the ongoing operation of the P.O.C. I just stepped out and get those demons' license plate. She is going to federal prison for gang stalking me and threatening my life, while gunshots are the sound, that which is reminiscent of the sound of a gunshot, which is deliberate, where the fake sun rises and sets, where your shadow is elevated above your head, where your shadow is spread around you like a deck of cards on the ground. That is a deliberate maintenance of the audible activity, which is designed to threaten. And since demons want to threaten, demons are going to prison for that. License, again, going to federal prison, license 9HNW373. Captured in images, it will be uploaded to the Google Drive. Trace Banks is already going to a mental asylum. You're prosecuting the population that comes onto the ground to help the demons that live at the venue, that work at the venue, who are maintaining criminal presence while the population aids in the engagement in the criminal elements of monitoring. Okay, stalking and surveilling in the bathroom in an apartment 24 hours a day for no legitimate purpose other than their obsession, which is also sexually perverted and inexplicable because they're demon possessed. All right, it is currently, again, 9:52 p.m. This is AVANATH Capital Management's Woodside Senior Apartments. This is P.O.C.